We're living our truth now. Crystal, what?
Krista who?
Christadelphian?
Did you say Christian Dolphin? So are you from Philadelphia?
Welcome to the Life After Leaving podcast, an ex-Christadelphian podcast.
Hello, heathens, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Zinnia. Today, I've asked a previous podcast guest to join me to talk about an idea that is central to the Christadelphian faith and something that ex-Christadelphians are reminded of frequently after leaving, the promise of the kingdom of God. We've been told over and over again that we'll be missing out on the best thing ever if we pass up on the kingdom. So today, let's talk about it. And today we will be joined by Chloe from episode 23. So welcome back to the podcast, Chloe.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back. I am so excited to get into this topic.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you on to talk about this.
Yes.
As most of our listeners know, we were both raised in the Christadelphian faith since birth, but we both left as adults. So we're familiar with these teachings, but we'll be speaking about them as former members and with our own personal views on this now. And I think this is going to be a really unique conversation because despite Christadelphians spending generations preaching this idea at their podiums, this is really the first time I know of that we're really able to ask hard questions, discuss our concerns, dissect these ideas to see if it truly makes sense and if it is really the incentive that we were taught to believe that it was. And please be aware that this episode is going to be silly, ridiculous, philosophical. We might be remembering some things a little wrong. So please remember that we're not preaching here. Really, we're just discussing an idea as we remember it from how we were taught, which should be relatable for ex-Christadelphians listening. And we really want to examine these ideas from different angles than the traditional narrative. Most of what we've heard on this topic growing up would have been timelines, doctrinal debates, very Christadelphian styles of approaching this. But we're ex-Christadelphians, so we want to have fun. We want to bring a unique and out-of-the-box perspective to this topic. So this is your reminder that this episode is going to be more of a philosophical discussion and not a class on what they believe. Feel free to find their YouTube or podcast if that's what you're looking for. This will not be it. And then for listeners who did not grow up in the Christadelphians, you're probably wondering what the kingdom is. So I am going to start with some background information before we get into our questions and discussions. And Chloe, you can let me know if I missed something important here.
For sure.
I've been reviewing a lot of information to try to get it somewhat comprehensive and not too confusing.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
So for Christadelphians, this doctrine of the kingdom of God is part of their beliefs essentially in the afterlife. But there are several phases, so we're basically going to review all of these different phases, and we'll start with the beliefs that underlie this. It was also really hard to research this. Like, even if you go to their Wikipedia, this isn't going to be on there. There's only a cursory mention of the kingdom, and Armageddon isn't even on there at all. Wow. So you do actually have to dig in surprisingly deep to actually be able to find information about this, because we're going to cover end times, resurrection, Armageddon. I was able to find one online book that had quite a bit, but other than that, a lot of stuff was very disjointed. So this is my attempt at a summary. There's not like a perfect source for this. Okay, so first, Christadelphians believe that all humans are born sinful and they're basically cursed by God to die instead of being immortal. And that goes back to Adam and Eve. So our mortality is a problem and a curse, but it can be solved thanks to Jesus. So if you hear his gospel, you get baptized, and of course, remain a Christadelphian in good standing with regular attendance at an ecclesia, then you're on your way to the kingdom. So that knowledge and steps of becoming a Christadelphian are kind of the background. Those are things you want to do during your life to qualify for these later steps. So that brings us to the present day. Christadelphians believe that we are currently in the end times and they are waiting for Jesus to return. That can happen any minute, any year, or decade at this point. And at his return, he will resurrect those who have heard the gospel and are found accountable. That brings us to the first judgment day. That's also one of the aspects of this that when I asked about the kingdom, most people talked about the trauma that this caused because only faithful baptized adults would be taken to the judgment seat. So children might be abandoned by their parents, pet owners would leave their pets behind, and people who are anxious about war and natural disasters would be worried about having to face those things alone if they were not taken. Okay, so now we get to the judgment seat. Most people are probably familiar with something kind of similar, the Christian concept of heaven or hell, where after you die, you face a judgment depending on how you lived your life. Heaven if you're good, hell if you're bad. The kingdom is sort of like heaven in this scenario, where it's a place they believe you will go if you were an obedient Christadelphian during your life. But it doesn't exist yet. So you don't go there after you die, like in the heaven ideology. Instead, the people who died have to be resurrected, and they go to this judgment seat. And if they're found worthy, they will be on the path to go to the kingdom. Jesus is the one who judges you specifically. And if you're a good Christadelphian, then you will go with Jesus to Israel, and those people will be granted immortality at the judgment seat. They will live forever. So those people who believed in the gospel and were baptized are good. And again, this is a very individualistic salvation. While I was reading this, they were talking about children who died would not be raised because they weren't able to learn the doctrine and get baptized. So it's tough for them. And kind of a really mean quote I found was, although we find this difficult to accept in the mortal state, in the immortal state, we will be able to cope with the loss.
That's wild. I remember in my ecclesia hearing conversations about this specific thing about, like, I think it's a big topic, like whether,
the kids,
the kids issue. Right. And I remember hearing in my ecclesia that they believed that the children of the saints would be covered essentially by the parents. So if you were judged righteous and became a saint, an immortalized saint, you would be essentially saving your kids. Mm-hmm. But if you weren't judged righteous, then obviously too bad for all of you and your whole family. But that is I never, growing up, I never heard that thing of like, oh, you know what? We will be so enlightened in the kingdom that we won't even care. Like,
yeah.
That is wild to me.
I think there's at least 3 schools of thought, because I've heard that one as well, where, if your parents are good, they can kind of, protect you and get you in, at least get you a chance to get in. Mm-hmm. John Thomas believed it was 0% chance. He said, like, babies, you are not making it in. They will not be raised. It's written in the history of early Christadelphians. No way. The third that I found when I was going through this was an idea that if you ask Jesus nicely, he will give your child a chance. And so they won't get guaranteed eternal life. But I guess he found one of the Bible verses in the New Testament where basically they asked Jesus to raise a kid. And then he's like, sure. And, but I honestly, I'm not an expert on that stuff. But
yeah, that's an interesting idea. Okay.
Yeah. He was like, well, he's not going to necessarily want to do it, but if you ask him,
and you just ask really nicely.
Yeah, if you just like ask him nicely.
Just say, please.
Please let my kid have a chance.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 I've heard. So again, there is, for our listeners, there is some diversity in thought there. So that's why I'm kind of trying to do the main stuff, but there's a few things that are a little vague, and so people have different opinions on it.
Yeah. All
right. So that's the people who are found worthy at the judgment. There's also the people who are found unworthy. So basically all of us ex-Christadelphians would be in that group. So if you were not an obedient Christadelphian, then your punishment from Jesus is you'll obviously be excluded from the kingdom, and you will die or die again if you were resurrected. To me, this always seems like a real waste of time, because Jesus has time to raise the dead just to tell him, oh, you're going to die, and just put him back down. But it's kind of nice that there's no eternal punishment like a hell. It's just death, and they do compare death to dreamless sleep, which sounds really refreshing. Not that bad.
Sounds like what I need, just a restful time.
And what's funny is, like, they won't even remember or be sad about not getting into the kingdom, like, once Jesus bumps them off again. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't seem like a big punishment. So Christadelphians kind of emphasize the punishment being exclusion from the kingdom. Yeah. Because they're like, we'll be there and you won't be there. So that's terrible. But they'll be the ones suffering, not you, because you're asleep, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, I think more the punishment that I was told to is like, you will have to live with the shame of disappointing God. the disappointment is punishment enough. Like you having to live with that rejection. That's like the ultimate rejection issue.
But my question is, how long do you have to live with it? If you got
Right,
resurrected,
yeah.
wouldn't he just put you right back in the ground? Like,
Good question. Yeah,
I could live with shame for 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's true. I always was under the impression, based on what I was taught, that like the people raised would have to like live through Armageddon and would just like live until they kind of died again naturally.
I like that he makes it a little more cruel. He's like, you know
Yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah.
I should
Yeah, you
make
gotta
this
live with the
worse
shame.
for them.
Yes, that's honestly what I thought. Like,
Okay.
that's what I remember being taught. It wasn't like, oh,
Okay.
gonna raise you and then quickly kill you again. Like,
Yeah. What's the point of bringing him back to life for life 2.0?
yeah.
Like, they already had a life, so you got a bonus life. That's actually
Yeah,
not bad.
bonus
like, you
life.
got a second life.
Yeah. Or it's like, I think it comes from the verse, remember like the weeping and gnashing of teeth?
There's lots of gnashing of teeth.
There's
yeah.
lots of gnashing of teeth and lots of weeping, and I assumed that you would have to be alive.
That happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the people who are rejected, so I assumed you had to be alive for more than 5 seconds to be weeping and gnashing your teeth. In my mind, I always just saw this mass of people crying, and that to me was like, like that was the thing that got me as a kid, you know? I don't want to be in that group.
Just the pit of despair.
Yes, a pit of despair, yeah. It's very like Greek mythology feeling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see this being a really dramatic painting.
Yes,
for
for
from
sure.
Like the olden
Yeah.
times. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so back to the narrative, and we have not even gotten to the kingdom yet. This is just the beginning of the end. So once Jesus has returned and judged those two groups, the resurrected people, the good and the bad, he initiates Armageddon. And now that Jesus has a bunch of immortal followers, he will lead his untrained army into battle. Because again, Christadelphians aren't supposed to be in the military or police or anything. So not sure how that works. But what was kind of disturbing that I found during my research was that Christadelphians, some of them at least, believe that Zechariah 14:12 describes Jesus as using a nuclear bomb to destroy the human armies. So Jesus might nuke you if you're not a Christadelphian.
Wow, I have never heard that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, if you read that verse, it's pretty dark and descriptive. And he says, you know what, that sounds like using a nuclear bomb. So Jesus might nuke you.
Okay.
So that would obviously actually help with the untrained army thing, because you don't need a trained army for that.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesus's followers obviously are now immortal because it's after the judgment. So they win the battle against those humans who opposed Jesus at Armageddon. So they're all dying. And the Christadelphian author of the book I read, his name is Stephen Hughes. Hughes describes it as the greatest humanitarian disaster that the world has ever faced. Would be the fallout of Armageddon.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that this happens in this valley in Israel. And they describe this as the collapse of civilization. Mm-hmm. And Hughes suggested that the whole world will be brought down to the level of a third world country where there would be no water, no sanitation toilets, and no electricity.
Wow.
Yeah. So as you point out, living through Armageddon does sound like it sucks.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes more sense with what I was taught. Not so much that extreme of a nuke, but there was this concept or like this idea that the world will be brought to its knees and you will have no choice but to turn to Jesus. That was kind of the vision that I was given as a kid.
Yeah, that sounds right. For anyone who did hear that part, not the Sunshine and Rainbows Kingdom part, but the dark end times part. Yeah. Okay. So now at this point, Jesus has basically just destroyed the Earth's armies. He destroys the Earth's governments, and he is in control of the Earth. But his priority is setting up the kingdom for God. One Christadelphian website wrote that once Christ has defeated his enemies, he will set up God's kingdom, which will have dominion over all kingdoms and nations of men. So Jesus and his angels are bringing the immortals to Jerusalem, and those immortals become rulers, judges, and teachers to help re-educate and reestablish the rule of Jesus over the world. And this period of time where Jesus is in control kicks off the Millennium. The Millennium is a 1,000-year period in which Jesus rules the world from Jerusalem, and he is busy preparing God's kingdom. Top priority is building a big temple in Jerusalem. One Christadelphian described it this way: 1,000 years during which Christ the King subdues and cleanses the world, bringing peace, prosperity, and justice at last to this polluted planet. And then they wrote that, or Christadelphian wrote that all the world religions will need to be disbanded.
Yeah.
And Hughes wrote about the governments, saying that democracies will be outraged at the prospect of being ruled by an unelected government. I was like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. One ex-Christadelphian wrote that this was an authoritarian nightmare. And I was like, yeah, once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
So humans are still alive, though. So only the ones that were judged potentially got immortality. And so there are humans that were still just happened to be alive at this time in history, but they weren't accountable. So during this millennium, they get a chance to join Jesus's team. Although it's odd because everyone else throughout history did not get that chance. So it's more of like, oh, if you happen to be alive when Jesus returns, you get a shot at the kingdom. So that's why some of the immortals are teachers, because they are teaching the humans. I'm just going to start calling them the humans if they're mortal.
Yeah.
They're teaching the humans the gospel and I guess baptizing them or whatever, so that they can be prepared for the second judgment day, because there's going to be another one. Apparently the humans will be living long, though, so they can live like 700 years now for some reason.
Right, yes.
So they might even be able to make it through the millennium, maybe.
Yeah.
But at the end of the 1,000 years, Jesus needs to get the earth ready for God, because the main point of this is that once death is gone and sin, because again, that's the whole reason why God can't be here, and that's the problem we're trying to solve with this doctrine, God will come down from heaven to live on earth with the immortals. So at the end of the millennium, there will be a final rebellion by people who, quote, hate Jesus, unquote, from what I saw. On one Christadelphian website, it said that, quote, eventually the millennium, the 1,000 years, will come to an end. It will be marked by a deliberate easing of the king's strong reign in order to allow vestiges of rebellion among some of his subjects to come to the surface.
Oh, wow.
In a final desperate challenge to his will, these disloyal subjects will attack Jerusalem, but will be utterly destroyed. When the rebellion is over, Christ's work as Savior and King is nearly done. The dead of the 1,000 years must be raised from their graves to meet again their King and Judge. Alongside those raised will stand the millions who are alive at that time. They must now await Christ's righteous judgment. The rebels and those who represent the worst elements of human nature will die. On the other hand, the faithful subjects of Christ's kingdom on earth will then receive their reward, everlasting life, just as the rulers had done 1,000 years before.
Wow.
So he'll kind of trick people into thinking, oh, maybe I can overthrow Jesus as an authoritarian dictator.
Crazy. I've never heard that. I never have heard that interpretation that he's going to intentionally kind of back off. That is crazy. It's a trap. You know, Jesus is out to trap you guys. That is crazy. Yeah.
So Jesus is going to trick them.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
I thought that was interesting. So
that is very interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's a trickster, you know, that Jesus.
Yeah. And again, all of my sources will be linked so people can read this stuff. But, yeah, and so then there's a second resurrection, which I feel like I don't hear people talk about much, and then a second judgment. So we still haven't gotten to the kingdom of God yet. So now we're at the second resurrection, second judgment day. This is where the last of the mortal humans who want to follow Jesus become immortals. Hughes wrote that after the cleanup operation of Armageddon 2, as they call it, the saints will leave Jerusalem and travel all over the world to resurrect those who have died during the millennium and collect those alive, unquote.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so apparently the saints can resurrect people, which is interesting. And they have to, like, seek the living from the rubble, it sounds like. So,
and this is before... This is Armageddon 2, right? This is before Armageddon 2. Judgment.
So it seems like the millennium is bookmarked by Armageddons, basically.
Okay, interesting. I hadn't heard it. The end of the millennium, I've never heard it be called Armageddon 2 before.
I hadn't.
Interesting.
Either. I think I've heard it more so called Rebellion, like the Rebellion.
Yes,
or
me
something
too.
Like
the Rebellion.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is very like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Vibes.
Totally.
Yeah. And so we get the second judgment, and at this point, we're not going to have like humanity in its current form, because we're going to have immortality, which means no sin and no death. So what's weird is Hughes was really excited to talk about this moment. So the last person to be judged will be the last death ever, apparently, on Earth. And so the immortals are going to celebrate this. He wrote, quote, "The last person to die will be someone who is rejected at the second judgment seat. This funeral will be like no other. It will be followed by the greatest celebration on the earth since the creation. I'm really, really looking forward to being at this funeral," unquote.
What? Okay, do you know, where does Hughes come from? Do you know?
Australia.
Okay, that tracks a little bit. That's wild. Even where
I've never
I
heard of
grew
that.
up, I've never heard of this.
I've never heard of this
I feel
celebration.
like he's extrapolating a lot. Like he's fleshing out something that I'm like, where is he getting these specific ideas from?
Oh yeah, and it's funny because he wrote 156 pages, I think it was, on this whole thing.
Okay.
And so he was the most intensive author I was really able to find of the Christadelphian on this. And so, as you can imagine, there's not 156 verses in the Bible to pull from to even flesh this out.
Absolutely not.
So there was a lot of extrapolating, and there's a lot of little life stories where he's like, well, I experienced this while I was on a trip, and I think that's what the kingdom's going to be like. And so it's actually really funny because he's just fantasizing about this stuff.
Totally. Yeah.
And so he didn't quote a verse here. And you'll see that a lot. So this is his extrapolations, which I find very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's why I'm kind of saying this is Hughes' version.
Yeah, this is definitely a more extreme version that you'll find amongst the Christadelphians.
He's giving it a little more flair and flourish.
Absolutely, yeah. Sounding very fantasy. Yeah, very fantasy vibes here.
Yeah. So now that we've had the greatest celebration on earth, apparently, we have finally gotten to the last step where the eternal kingdom of God is established. And as Christadelphians will tell you, it is on earth. Mm-hmm. So Jesus hands over the kingdom to God, and then Jesus disappears from the storyline. We have no idea what happens to him at this point. Mm-hmm. But at this point, the earth has been cleansed through lots of bloodshed. And Christadelphians believe at this point that there will be no more war, no more death, no more suffering. So it's positive, or a net positive in the end. But the best thing for all of these immortals is that they will have a close relationship with God, because God physically comes down from wherever heaven is to earth to hang out with his new immortal besties in his kingdom on earth. And he was waiting over 1,000 years during the Millennium, plus several thousand years since Jesus's time, and his followers finally get their reward after waiting all of these thousands of years. So one of the most interesting things about this belief system to me has been the numerous steps and many, many requirements that this requires to get to the Christadelphian afterlife. It requires so much commitment and so much patience.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end, and that's also the end of life as we know it, and it brings us to the start of eternity, because remember, everyone is immortal now. And that's kind of where the story stops, because there's no real description about what happens for the rest of eternity. The main thing is that they say, God will be all in all, whatever the hell that means. That sounds great for God. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that means for the former humans.
Yes.
But we're basically told, don't worry about it. God's going to be really happy. And the humans are either dead or immortal. And there's going to be really great crop harvests. So don't worry about it. and that's the
crop harvest.
Yeah. Just really great, prosperous harvests.
Lovely.
And now everyone who survived gets to spend eternity with God on earth. That's the end. That's their heaven. That's what they want. That's why they go to their meeting every Sunday, so that they have a shot at this. And they could still be turned away, but hopefully they attended enough services. Put enough money into the bag that they make it in.
Totally. Hopefully they did enough of their daily Bible readings. Hopefully they didn't miss too many days.
Right?
Yeah.
Ugh, that would not look good. What would Robert Roberts do?
No.
He'd be disappointed. And then here's the final sales pitch, and I found this from the Christadelphian magazine website. Quote, "We may find it difficult to think that far ahead or to visualize what is meant by God being all in all. but it will be the climax of the Creator's great purpose with the earth, and it will be very wonderful. Don't let this marvelous future slip away from you. Jesus may be here soon. Unquote.
It will be wonderful. That, you know what? I'm sold.
It will be very
I'm
wonderful.
sold. Very wonderful.
It will be very
wow.
wonderful. That's their
Very
description.
wonderful.
That's their sales tactic.
Okay.
It will be very wonderful. It will be here soon. Don't let it slip away from you, this once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
Just give us every Sunday and Thursday night for the rest of your life.
Yeah, just
and
sacrifice your life here.
Yeah, and also obey us, get baptized, attend our classes, pray, sing the hymns, raise your children like this, and this marvelous future may someday be yours.
It may be yours.
It may be yours for 10 easy payments.
Just obey. Yeah, for 10.
Just obey.
For one easy payment of your entire human life.
Of your entire
here
life.
On Earth. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we already discussed earlier, there's some minor variety on this where some individuals, ecclesias, or even the different subgroups of Christadelphians may believe slightly different versions of this with different circumstances and details. But this is the general timeline and like story of the Christadelphian end times to afterlife. So is there anything that you noticed that I missed or that you wanted to cover of background material before we start the rest of our conversation today?
Honestly, no, that was very comprehensive and even more so intense than what I grew up with, which I didn't think was possible. Like, good thing I didn't grow up hearing some of that stuff, because that would have made it so much worse for me. Like, what I heard was intense enough. You know, I didn't need the whole, like, description of, like, when there's no more humanity, basically, after the first Armageddon. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, and having two Armageddons, like, oh, great.
Yeah,
it's
two
only
Armageddons.
Once in the Bible, but we get two of them.
Exactly. No, that's a good refresher for me as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for a lot of us.
For sure. Like, I remember being taught a lot about the March of the Rainbowed Angels. So, the Rainbowed Angels is the first Armageddon. Like, that will be the saints coming in to fight, to rescue Israel from their enemies. And so for me, I guess it was always more of like it sounded more fantastical and more like whimsical in my mind, I guess.
The rainbow does add a little whimsy layer.
Yes, the Rainbowed Angels. I'm like, hell yeah.
Follow you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it was, I guess in my head as a kid, even though it was very scary, it wasn't, honestly, good thing I didn't hear any of that stuff.
Yeah.
When I was like a teenager. That's wild.
I will say reading, or we'll say skim reading, because let's be honest, it was 156 pages.
Yeah, wow.
Of like, it was like 156 pages of a fever dream to be bananas. Like, my mouth dropped open.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. I highly recommend people skim through it. If it piques your curiosity even a little bit, because it is insane.
I'm going to read it.
All right, so for today's episode, it's going to be a little different than a lot of our other episodes because, again, a lot of this stuff's a little more vague. It's all in the future. None of this has happened. So it's not like the history episodes, and it's not like our episodes where we share our stories and the interviews. This is just going to be a discussion, and I like to think of it as all the questions you couldn't ask at Bible school.
Yes.
You know, all of those weird doubts and concerns that you never risked speaking out loud. You know that socially you were not able to ask those things. So I want to tug at the threads of those ideas, think about these vague things in more concrete terms. And obviously we're not making fun of anyone for what they believe. I want to say that because obviously we used to believe this too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were literally told it's life or death. You have to believe this or you will die. So I get that many people still feel that and experience that. But I want to have people feel allowed to ask questions. This is a space to ask questions and to challenge these beliefs that we were raised with. And I think it also potentially will help other people understand why so many ex-Christadelphians are not influenced by the kingdom doctrine to return to Christadelphia, because probably all of us have been told, you'll be missing out on the kingdom. Come back to meeting. So I think it's going to come out in this episode a lot of reasons why different ex-Christadelphians aren't swayed by this kingdom doctrine. And I already told you, I expect this to be completely unhinged at certain points. So
great.
Let's
go
here
for it.
Let's ask all the questions you can't ask at Bible school.
Yay.
So I thought first we might start with a little bit of a personal note. So Chloe, if you don't mind, I want to hear what your experience was of growing up, hearing these beliefs about the kingdom. Would you say that growing up with these end times kingdom beliefs were traumatic for you? Because it sounds like they were for many ex-Christadelphians.
Yeah, definitely. I think as soon as I was old enough to kind of understand the concept in Sunday school, I immediately was having anxiety about it.
Oh,
and of course, being that young, like, you don't know what anxiety is. I just remember feeling bad. You remember hearing these things and just feeling scared and bad and anxious. I don't know if you ever saw, I think it's Peter Pan 2, but I think the opening scene of Peter Pan 2 is like World War II, and they're like boarding up their, they're like boarding up their windows
like
and
war.
things. Yeah, the war with like the blackout, whatever, and there's that siren sound of the planes flying overhead, and they start dropping bombs. So in my kid brain, I thought that planes flying overhead equals the beginning of war. And so I was having anxiety attacks as soon as I can remember about the sound of planes flying overhead, because I thought it meant the beginning of Armageddon. So that was number one thing that created this little stack of panic in my life. But the second thing was the notion that when Jesus returns to earth, the first thing that's going to happen is the angels will come to all the doors of the saints or of the believers. They will knock on your door and come to collect the saints. Yeah. And there wasn't much, like you said, the whole what's going to happen to kids thing is very vague for a lot of Christadelphians. So as a kid, that scared me so badly. This thought that like at any moment, anybody who knocks on our door could be somebody to come take my parents away and leave me alone. Like, nobody told me, oh, don't worry, you're not going to... No one told me that. I just thought...
no one taught you how to survive on your own either.
Exactly.
Like, you'll probably make it to adulthood. Hopefully. You better pray about it.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, by the time I was 8, 9 years old, I think I had my first panic attack at, like, 8 or 9. And a lot of it was to do with just these constant things in the back of your head as a kid that is so heavy and so scary. So I wasn't even yet thinking about the kingdom. I could barely mentally get through the concept of like Jesus returning. Like Jesus returning to the earth. Step. Yeah, step one, let's just get through the idea of Jesus returning. I couldn't do that as a kid. Like that alone was enough to kind of like paralyze me.
Yeah, it's right.
With
all
anxiety.
Of your security. Your parents are your security, and that's the one thing you're going to lose right off the bat. And they want that. They've both signed up. We're both going to go.
Yeah, for sure. So needless to say, like abandonment issues, panic issues, really bad anxiety even as a kid. So yeah, that was like maybe like 8 or 10 years old. So by the time I was like a early teen, you're able to kind of start to gaslight yourself a little bit better of like, oh no, everyone else around me thinks that this is going to be the best thing ever. So maybe I just don't understand properly what's going to be so great about it.
And you've kind of aged into feeling safer. Like, I'll be taken to at least.
At least I'll be taken to. And but it became more of something like trying to force myself to think positively about it. Like, push the anxiety down.
Like, oh, I want to be there. I want to be there. Keep telling myself I want to be there until you believe it. Yeah.
I never actually felt it. I will say that. It's one thing I was able to tell myself over and over again and really gaslight myself into believing I do want this. I really do want this. I have to want this.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You have to want this.
Yes, you have to want
the choice,
this.
Really.
Yeah. And so looking back, when I felt anxious. I never thought about it and felt this like positive, warm reassurance kind of feeling. It was always something, even into my adulthood, where like it triggered immense anxiety. And so by the time I was like, mid-teens, it more so became like a grief of like, I'm not going to be able to live a normal life. Because, Jesus is coming back in like 5 minutes. Like,
anytime. Yeah. Everyone kept saying it.
So it was always like, Jesus is coming back in 8 hours. Pray that he comes back tonight. I heard that all the time. Pray that Jesus returns even this very night, like even by tomorrow.
Ooh,
so
that would make me very anxious.
It made me so anxious. So by the time I was a teenager, it was kind of like this grief and anxiety feeling about not kind of coming to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to be able to live a normal life. Like I'd always wanted to get married, always wanted to like write kids books. And so I was like, I guess I'm not going to be able to do any of that. Like I just had to accept that. And it was very sad. So, when I thought about the kingdom, I felt anxiety, number one. and sadness, number 2.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, confusion. And that's when I started asking more questions and, having those questions shot down, obviously, and shut down. And that's kind of like the time when, I guess, of my relationship to like the kingdom doctrine. It never did what I think Christadelphians intended for it to do on me. It never really worked on me, like as a kid ever.
I relate to a lot of that, because I definitely remember hearing always like Jesus will be back soon, and they would use, especially Thursday nights, it seemed like they highlighted prophecy and the return of Jesus a lot. So we'd be at Thursday night class, because I remember them doing like a deep dive into Ezekiel, a deep dive into Revelation, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And they would also often highlight like that newsletter that went out about like end time signs and be like, oh, well, this is in the news. Here's a Bible verse showing that this is prophecy being fulfilled. This war, in Iraq means that this is going to happen. Hurricane Katrina means this. For me, I think the natural disasters that I grew up with, like even like the Twister movie came out.
Oh yeah.
Hurricane Katrina happened when I was younger, where like New Orleans was like wiped off the map.
Yeah.
And so for me, I like when there'd be big storms, I would start thinking like, oh, this might be the end times. Like all of these dramatic natural disasters are actually God making things worse, and Jesus is going to return. So that was more my phobia that developed with like my wiring of like the end times doctrine happening as a child. And then I would say I remember sitting in meeting feeling resentful. Because, and you touched on this a little bit, but I was like, I want to enjoy my life. That's not fucking fair that the adults get to fall in love and have a house and grow up and like retire and like have a full life. And I'm just a kid. And I might not even get a chance to be in the kingdom because I'm not old enough and I didn't get baptized, which, no surprise, I got baptized young because I was like 11, 12. And I was okay, well, at least I get a shot and I'll get taken away too. So it must have been in the years before then when I was like 9, 10 years old. I was like, well, that's not fair that I don't get my life. I don't want Jesus to come back. I honestly thought that. Of course, I'd never say that. I was like, I don't want him to come back because that's not fair. And I don't want that. I want my life. Like, I want to live my life first. If he's going to come back, let him come back when I'm old.
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah. So I thought that was bullshit. And then once the kingdom comes, that a lot of stuff's going to change, which I guess we'll get into more with this episode. And the other thing I remember was going to like Bible schools, and at like Sunday exhortations, maybe sometimes I would hear this idea that you need to imagine what the kingdom is and have a vision of the kingdom. And you need to think about it every day. You need to use that to motivate you. But I always had a problem with that, I'll be honest, because in my view, there wasn't enough stuff in the Bible to make a compelling image. It wasn't describing what we'd be doing or what it would look like and like what would happen with our relationships and stuff. Like there wasn't enough that related to me that was really compelling, because I was like, I could make something up. I could make up a whole world where I'm like, oh, this sounds fantastic. But if it's not based on the Bible, then I'm going to be disappointed. So I was like, is there enough in the Bible to make a compelling image and like vision board of the kingdom? And I felt like there really wasn't.
No, there wasn't.
So I was worried about being disappointed by the kingdom, and I never could visualize it, which is not good for a Christadelphian. You're supposed to be able to visualize it, but I'm like, how?
Without a vision, the people perish,
Girl,
where you quoted that verse a bajillion times. Like, if you're not imagining the kingdom, you're not going to be motivated, and you're going to die. That's basically what was taught.
Thing. Yeah, that was what they were teaching. And it's like, you do it, prove it. Start yourself. Tell us your vision, all the verses you use, because I don't think you can do it well. So I guess we're ready to start talking about more questions. So I just grabbed one or two historical ones, and then I've tried to start sorting them so they're a little bit more in order of how the kingdom goes or by topic. So I try to keep it a little organized, but who the hell knows how this episode's going to go.
All right. Sounds
one that was just on my mind recently because it came out just this season. I'd done the newest John Thomas history episode. And if you listen to episode 38, I shared a story where John Thomas was acting as an elder in the Campbellite church. And he was talking in that episode about being a ruler in God's kingdom. So one thing I keep thinking about is if Christadelphian teachings are true, then it would make sense that John Thomas would be there. Because he's the one who opened the door for all of these generations of Christadelphians to follow his beliefs, to hear the gospel, to be baptized, and to then be eligible to be in the kingdom. But like, based on what we know about John Thomas, what kind of ruler do you really think he was going to be?
Scary. I think scary.
I think he would be corrupt. I think he would like take cash bribes.
Yeah.
I think he would be cruel. I mean, he had slave labor on his farm. Like, I don't think he's an ethical person.
No.
Like, I think that's the problem, is that like he was a liar and a scam artist. So, but the problem is, and I think that I have this elsewhere in here, but we can start talking about it now, is he would be a Christadelphian, right? So he meets the standards he sets up. But that's a different standard than being a good and moral person.
Yes.
Which, in the heaven and hell concept, my understanding is that like Catholics and other religions, they believe you have to be a good person to get the reward. In this doctrine, I don't think you necessarily have to be a good and moral person. You just have to be obedient. You have to know,
it's about knowledge. It's coming to the knowledge of the truth and obedience of it. So it really has nothing to do with being a good person at all.
Yeah, and I think that's a major blind spot for them.
I agree.
Because I was like, I could be in the kingdom and have to deal with an eternal asshole.
Yeah.
Like John Thomas, I'm pretty sure John Thomas was like an ass, like an absolute jerk. And I can't imagine I would put up with that every single day for the rest of my life.
No, and imagine him having now immortality as well. Like,
like there's no end. Like if he sets up a scam, there's no end of the scam. Yeah. And all he has to do is keep showing up to, I don't know, animal sacrifices or whatever, which I guess he also get up to. He used to do whatever the standard is of action, to be acceptable. But it's not about character. And so it becomes very weird right off the bat. So I was like, I can't imagine John Thomas being a good ruler after seeing how he was just in a Campbellite church. Yeah. No. And then one other more historical one is that even in the 1800s, people were like, this theory has some problems.
Yeah.
And again, Alexander Campbell was outspoken and complaining. So I actually found, while I was doing research for the last history episode, a comment in his magazine, The Millennial Harbinger in 1837, where he was arguing that this idea has a major flaw because God is supposedly a God of salvation and love, but if we believe this doctrine that John Thomas believes in, then most people throughout history would be excluded from the kingdom.
Yes.
And so Campbell wrote, quote, "If a man be perishable in all respects as the beasts that perish, it is a doctrine of immense practical importance and certainly ought to be extensively divulged to prevent the eternal ruin of millions of our race," unquote. And, quote, "50 are damned eternally by the gospel for the one it saves," unquote.
Wow.
So, so even back when John Thomas was really getting on his preaching kick and was like on the circle with the Campbellite churches, developing his doctrine, people were pointing out that this is very exclusive, this idea. And so I thought it was a really good point and worth mentioning again because it still stands. Yeah. Because even today, most people haven't heard of the Christadelphian doctrines.
Yeah.
And most people, when you look back at history, wouldn't have heard of it. I mean, it didn't even exist not that long ago, a couple hundred years ago. And even when you look at like modern medicine, if you look at the statistics and information, most babies and like infants did not survive into adulthood. Like having a kid hit 5 years old was a milestone and then you could kind of breathe easy. Yeah. But a lot of kids died. And so again, like we were talking about earlier, that will the kids survive question, that means an incredible amount of humanity would not have been eligible to even go to the first judgment.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember, it's kind of like, it gives me a bit of JW vibes because I remember there was a phase in my ecclesia where there was a lot of emphasis on the 144,000. Yeah. And just, that is such a small number. In compared to all of humanity.
Yes.
that number, that number alone gave me anxiety of like, well, that even just statistically, like.
Well, even if there's 50,000 Christadelphians alive, that means a tiny fraction.
Of Christadelphians. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. The definition of exclusive.
Yeah, and then so what does that say about God? If this is God's plan, his plan was to have humanity be on earth for thousands of years, minimum 7,000 if you do the 7,000 year plan subscription. But it's like, what was the point then of all of the other humans and all of these other generations who are basically going to be excluded by default? And again, it's not even their fault, because they're saying, well, you have to know it. Okay. But God set the requirement. God, got these books written, set that in motion. God chose John Thomas to find it, whatever. So how is it their fault? Why do they not get the chance when, God was the one who kind of set all this in motion? Supposedly it's all part of God's plan, right? Someone dies. Oh, it's part of God's plan. God
it also
mysterious ways.
Yeah, it also though goes against the kind of notion that God has sacrificed his son to save the world. And there's verses like God wants no one to perish, right? Like God is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to the knowledge of whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what happened to that idea that God has given us, quote, the truth to save the entire world. But yet when it comes to the kingdom, it's like, well, just kidding, actually. It's only this very select few during this very select time. And you kind of just had to be lucky, right? It's kind of just like a luck game.
Luck of the draw, Because if you were born at a different time, automatically excluded.
Yeah.
If you're born in the wrong place, automatically excluded. If you were raised in something else, automatically excluded. As Campbell points out, this is so exclusive that at this point it's hard to even say, oh, it's saving people, because as he's saying, it's damning more people than it's saving.
It's a lottery, kind of.
Yeah. So I think if you really do believe this, you have to ask, does God really want to save people? And why is it so exclusive? Because that doesn't seem to make sense if God actually wants to save people and have everyone have this chance.
Yeah.
I mean, supposedly this is God's plan. He wants us to be in the kingdom with him. He wants to be united with his humans again. I'm like, okay, well, can you give everyone a shot then?
Yeah.
So I already kind of touched on is that there's a quote talking about how Campbell already sees what we talked about, where goodness becomes obedience. So Campbell said, quote, "The gospel makes those who obey it just, and those who reject it unjust. Hence it condemns many more than it saves, and promises to all mankind who cannot hear it an eternal rest in the bosom of undisturbed consciousness," unquote. And I thought that was really clear, and I really liked that he was able to express it so articulately, because like we were saying, this isn't about morality and being a good person. You can be a shitty person, but as long as you're obedient, then you are safe and you are good. And so this is where we again are seeing authoritarianism come out, because if you disobey, that's punishable by death. But if you're obedient, you're good. But it also is kind of scary to me, because again, it's saying that being a good person does not matter, which brings us into our next question. So one thing I'm still can't stop thinking about is Sarah's interview from, I think, season 3. And in her episode, she talks about how the people in her ecclesia were more concerned about the pedophile in her ecclesia and whether he was attending meeting or not, because if he wasn't attending meeting, he wouldn't be allowed into the kingdom. And so those Christadelphians were focused on the eternal reward for criminals and abusers, obviously more than actual physical abuse happening in this life. They were focused on the next life, which is obviously terrible. But it also begs the question, is the kingdom full of pedophiles?
It begs the question. It does beg the question.
Because they're saying you don't have to be a good person. You just have to go to meeting. And they are saying, we want him to keep going to meeting. We want him in the kingdom with us for eternity. And I mean, fortunately, the kingdom apparently won't really have children.
Oh, yeah, that's true. There will be no children.
Maybe it's a safe place for pedophiles.
Maybe, I don't know. I guess I always assumed that when you are changed to be like the angels, there wouldn't be any like human drive, human nature whatsoever. So I kind of like, no less, like nothing. So I always assumed that like that every human trait we had about us would be turned off, kind of. So,
I don't disagree. The question is someone who had inflicted child sexual abuse on a child during their life able to be judged by Jesus as worthy of the kingdom and everlasting life?
Well, if he was baptized, then absolutely yes, they would say.
They were baptized.
Yeah, so if you were baptized and you go on to
standing,
yes, if you're in good standing and you go on to commit any manner of crimes or whatever you want to do, that's fine because you're baptized and you have access to forgiveness and mercy through God. Mm-hmm. So truly, you could be committing anything up into the last moment and then, beg for forgiveness and quote unquote repent. And you're good to go. Honestly, you are good to go.
Yeah. Any of the brothers and sisters that have come in the true crime episodes, they, I guess, would be eligible to go to the kingdom. And what's crazy to me is like, regardless of that, they're eligible. But, like, some of the nicest people you've ever met, because they don't go to meeting and weren't baptized, never even get a chance.
No, it's all about the knowledge with Christadelphians.
All about the knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely true. And again, that was what Campbell had a problem with and was articulating as far back as the 1830s.
Yeah.
He's like, wait a second.
Something just doesn't really make sense here.
Yeah. And then I was also thinking about logistics. So Jesus returns. We were always told angels will come and get you.
Yeah.
And they can at least fly, maybe teleport. I'm not sure.
I was taught disappear and reappear at will, like how they do with the people in the Bible, like Abraham and such, where they're there one moment and then, a couple moments later they're seen somewhere else.
So you can like
teleport.
Time travel.
Time teleport. Yeah. That's literally what I was taught as a kid.
And so they are all taken to, I think I've heard Mount Sinai for the judgment.
Yep.
But I mean, we don't know how many people, but let's say minimum 50 to 100,000 people who at the time know the doctrines. But I mean, it's also going to be people who are resurrected. So that means you have thousands of years worth of people who somehow qualify. How long do you think the judgment day takes?
I was taught many years, right?
Years?
I was taught many years. I was taught that the judgment is going to take a decent chunk of time, like years.
But if we're humans, like, are we waiting in a hotel? Like, the angel just dumps us somewhere. We just sit there and, like, take a number, like we're at a deli counter. Like,
I guess,
here's my ticket. And you have to, like, or like at a restaurant, it buzzes when it's your turn. And
we all get a buzzer.
Like, it's my turn to see this.
Literally, I can't remember. I remember somebody in my ecclesia made one of those huge posters, of, like, the timeline. And I remember the judgment period in the beginning. It was a decent sized chunk. I should try to find it, but it was not just a day. Certainly not. I can't remember if he said like 100 years or something, but it was something very long.
What he used to figure that out, because I didn't come across it in my research, how long that was going to take anywhere. I didn't see that. It may be out there and I just didn't see it.
Okay, I'm sure I can find it.
But I'd be curious if they did their own math to be like, well, by my estimates, there should be this many righteous to be judged.
It was definitely that.
Really insane when you do your own math, and I'm like, how do you know how many people throughout history would be?
I think it was like he was taking the time because there's like the 7 trumpets and the seals and the March of the Rainbow Angels and all these things. So when you break up the amount of time that is actually told to us in the Bible, it means that means that there must be this much time for judgment. I think that's kind of how it was figured out.
Bible math. Okay.
Yeah, Bible math. Yeah.
Yeah. Just
very special kind of math.
Yeah. Bible math doesn't always hold up, but
no.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
So one thing that also strikes me about who's going to be there, is it pedophiles? Are we waiting around? But are we waiting around with Bible characters? Because presumably they will be resurrected and judged, like Daniel, David, Abraham, Joseph. But also, using John Thomas's logic, how on earth are any of these Old Testament people going to be in the kingdom if they've never even heard of Jesus? They never got baptized. They never took bread and wine. They never went to a memorial service. So are they being measured by a completely different metric than like by people who were exposed to the Christadelphian doctrine?
Do you remember being taught anything about that?
I feel like someone had talked about it, but I don't remember anymore.
I
really
remember, I remember hearing that it was something to do with, remember how in the Bible it says there was a time when God was here on earth with humans, and then after a certain point it became too evil or whatever, and God withdrew. And so now we're living in the time period where God has withdrawn. But for people like Abraham or Daniel, who lived in the time period where God was here, it's almost like they are, like, not judged differently, but they had this, like, personal access to God. So it's even like...
God, like, spoke to them.
Yeah, God spoke to them.
As opposed to in the modern era where he's MIA.
Yeah, so it's like they even have, like, a step... Like, God knows their hearts even better than he knows ours, because, like, it's something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
so basically saying they have direct access.
Yeah, they had direct access, so they aren't required to know about, like, this modern setup of the atonement and things like that.
But it's weird, because, like, where's that cutoff? But, I mean, they also had, like, their own system, so it's almost like there are different metrics. So it's like, oh, well, did they do a burnt sacrifice for God?
Yeah.
Then their sins were forgiven, whereas we have to, like, go drink the bread and wine and, like, pray about it to be forgiven and get baptized.
Yeah, there's almost this implication that these old Bible characters had this understanding of this, like, foreshadowing of what was to come, you know? So it was almost like...
I have heard that, where it's like, oh, they knew that this was coming.
Yes.
I don't think they knew that.
Yeah, no. No, but it was like, oh, and like David or so-and-so realized that, like, they would be the father of the father of the father of this special person, Jesus. So, like, it was almost like they had this special knowledge and access to God's plan, like, direct from God. But again, how does that impact where and how they get judged? I was taught that it was like God will know your heart. So it's kind of a matter of just standing there and, like, well, God knows, like, he knows what's in your heart. So, you know.
And jumping off of that, if you don't mind, my thought then is, why doesn't that rule apply to the rest of humanity who is currently alive?
Yeah.
Why can't the woman who has a rosary, who prays and goes to her church every day, who believes she has a personal relationship with this Christian God, Yahweh, why doesn't she get measured by that same metric of devotion and love and commitment and whatever else? Like, why wouldn't they get that chance then, if that's kind of our thinking? Like I said, there's a double standard.
Totally double standard. And I think it's like, I heard a lot growing up, well, you know, God is a God of mercy, but he's equally a God of truth. So God is merciful, but not too merciful. He's a God of mercy and truth. You know, he's like the sword and the plow. So there's you can't have too much mercy. We're like, no, you still have to be following everything correctly. You still have to know all the right things. But he's merciful. Like, I felt like they couldn't ever really land. It was like this vague thing where God is either like a God of war or a God of love, and it was very convenient as to when and where that applied.
Yeah. It seems like the hard rules are for the Christadelphians.
Yeah,
it's kind of what it comes down to. It's like, oh, for everyone else, you know, oh, they either aren't relevant, because they always keep the focus on you as Christadelphians, or it's like, oh, well, things were different then.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So talking about the Old Testament Bible characters, do you think they're going to have to go to memorial services and kind of be a more modern thing, or does it revert, you know, where instead of sitting through an exhortation, we now have to learn animal sacrifices and how to, like, weave and shit?
Yeah, good question. And it goes back to what we were talking about with, will the earth, according to the Christadelphians, return back to this very, like, primitive state where there's, you know, no modern technology or advancements at all? And they, I guess, those old Bible characters will have the upper hand on us, I guess.
And, because they would have lived in that time, whereas we would be struggle bussing.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good question.
Right?
These are the hard questions,
These are the questions that you never really talk about or think about, but when you poke at them a little bit, you're like, wait a second, I don't know. It could go either way, or it just isn't clear, or it's concerning and it doesn't make sense.
Yes, exactly.
So moving forward a little bit in the storyline, once we get through who's at the first judgment, who's potentially getting turned into a saint at that time from people who are resurrected or alive, next we get into Armageddon. And so you get into people starting to become immortal. Yeah. And your first task, it kind of sounds like, is potentially committing murder.
Yeah.
Because he wants his army and he wants them to fight against the other nations, you know? And so what's crazy to me is, I mean, there was the whole part of the Bible where it said, like, thou shalt not commit murder. And during people's lives as Christadelphians, they aren't supposed to obviously commit murder and like be in the military and all that stuff. So I'm kind of confused because why, like, he's like, don't kill anyone, don't kill anyone. Actually, I need you to fucking kill people right now.
Yeah.
Like that feels like such a switch to flip.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I have another point, was that God is all powerful. Jesus is supernatural and like has God's power too. So couldn't one or the other just like snap their fingers and all of the wicked people in these nations just have like a heart attack or an aneurysm, just like drop dead? Like there's actually no point, if you're an all-powerful being, of having a war and making people
at this
kill
point,
people.
No point at all.
There's no point, right?
Yeah, we're at this phase where Jesus is here on earth. Why are we now requiring huge World War III? Like just... Jesus is here. You can do whatever the hell you want. Like you can literally raise people from the dead. You can fly. You can like teleport. And you're saying I have to pick up a sword and stab someone, like make eye to eye contact with them and kill them. And that's like a prerequisite to getting like an eternal reward and rest and my prosperous crops, obviously, and all that stuff. I have to kill someone. What? Crazy. Like, do you remember like being taught that as a kid, or was that like kind of a thing that they celebrated in your area, or was that like, oh, we don't really talk about that, like that's kind of taboo?
I don't remember many people celebrating. I have heard stories where I know that was fairly common. In another episode you will hear that I recently recorded that will come out probably right before this one, but you wouldn't have heard it at the time that we're recording. Where one Christadelphian shares that someone was excited to shoot gay people. I heard similar things. So it sounded like where you grew up in Canada, there was some speakers who were kind of known for this, if I'm correct.
Yes, very known for like very much so heavily dwelling in the violent aspects of Armageddon and kind of
like enjoying and
kind of like reveling in the idea that like, oh, we can't wait to like wipe out all these evil, perverse, like this, very bizarre celebratory attitude. Very horrifying.
That's
like,
so dark.
Very dark.
Like, and I can't wait for Jesus to let me kill people. Like he's just waiting. It's like he's being restrained by the times and these conventions of our society. Won't let me kill the evil. I have to wait until Jesus gets here.
We have to wait.
And I will do it.
As soon as we have divine permission, it's like, okay, we can do, we're going to be allowed to kill, which is crazy. I remember in one weekend kind of gathering thing I went to, the speaker was talking about how we're all right now currently preparing for our future roles in the kingdom. He's like, which one of you in the crowd is maybe in your mind preparing for a teacher role or a priesthood role? And then he had this dramatic pause and he was like, now, how many of you in the crowd are preparing to be a soldier in Armageddon? And I remember like 2 people raised their hand, only 2 people. And I was one of them. I was like a kid at the time. It was like me and this other kid, Sam, raised our hand and he was like, oh, okay, well, besides you 2 there, he's like, we need to think about this seriously. Like, we need to not have such an idealized version of, we're all just going to be, you know, these
the
kindly teachers. Like, we're not all going to be kindly teachers. Like, some of us need to prepare.
Some of you need to be ready to kill.
Yes, we need to harden. We need to, like, get kind of hardened and get ready for this, like, this violence. It was bizarre, but I'll never forget that, because that was the first time I ever heard someone be like, hey, you guys need to sober up and, like, get ready for the war. Like, get ready to fight, you guys. Like, you guys are soft.
I don't remember experiencing that, but I also wasn't in that area, which I'm kind of thankful for, because I think that would have made me lose my mind.
For sure.
That's just crazy. Because, again, like, the vision of the kingdom we're always told about is like, it's a world with peace, it's a world without death, it's going to be wonderful. But then they'll casually be like, after the genocide.
Exactly. After all this insane stuff that no one talks about. Like,
we have to cleanse the world first. But again, the people who need to be cleansed in this scenario, the evil people, aren't necessarily bad people. Like, these are the people who are like spending their weekends at the animal shelter feeding homeless animals, but they weren't at the ecclesia, so
but
they're
hey,
evil.
they could be gay. So
yeah, it's like,
you know?
oh, what if they were gay? We don't care that they foster children and are raising them in a healthy, safe environment. We would rather have a Christadelphian abusing them because at least they're taking them to meeting on Sunday.
Exactly.
Like, whoa.
Yep.
Whoa.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I find it very alarming because I can't imagine how many morally good people are potentially being killed by morally bad people in this situation, because God doesn't believe in good versus evil. It's obedient versus disobedient.
Yeah. It's God versus the flesh.
Yes. Yeah, it gets really dark with this part, thinking about that. And honestly, when I keep thinking about it, it's pretty dark. But again, comparing it to the punishment, I did find a quote from Campbell that I'll share again. Quote, "And again, he that is saved by it is not saved from hell, from sin. For he was no sinner till the gospel came, and he was only saved from eternal sleep." Unquote. Yeah. So I think it's interesting because he's saying, first off, you're not saving them from hell and like this eternal punishment, which was more an idea that they were on board with, I guess. He's saying, oh, you're just saving from sinly nature? Kind of anticlimactic. Yeah. But he's also saying you weren't a sinner until you knew the gospel. At that point, like, you weren't going to be punished or anything anyways because you were ignorant. And then you go through all of this effort just to save you from being asleep, essentially.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is insane. What you have to go through and what you have to commit to just to avoid being very peacefully dead. Yeah. And so honestly, like, you know, if people are asking like, oh, why don't you want to be in the kingdom? Like, well, my other option is actually better of just going to sleep and being done with it. Like, yeah,
exactly. I remember like Christadelphians kind of using that point to obviously position themselves above any other Christians, because of course, as we know, Christadelphians are the only true Christians.
Yes,
only ones.
The only ones who figured out the truth.
Yeah, exactly. But at the point of, well, there is no hell, I feel like that was used as a point to prove that, see, God is good. God is merciful. He loves all his creation, because he would never eternally torture his creation like that. He loves us. It's simply an eternal sleep. Like, see how merciful that is? Like, I heard that a lot growing up of like, see, this is a perfect example of God's mercy.
But I feel like that's not real mercy. That's
it's not
antagonism.
No.
It's an absence of antagonism,
exactly.
Perhaps.
And I think that was just used, obviously, like, let's just ignore Armageddon, I guess. Let's ignore all the stuff God did in the Bible that's extremely violent and scary. Really scary.
Merciful thing would be forgiveness for everybody and chance for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, that would be the merciful thing.
Yeah. But no, at least it's not eternal torture. That's too far. That's crazy.
Crazy. But yeah, I was like, forced into the army, go to sleep. Oh, which one am I going to pick?
Hard choice. Yeah.
Okay. Here's one of my fun questions I have been thinking about, and I can't decide. Okay. The immortals are battling the humans. If a human throws a grenade at the immortals, do they stay intact or do they split apart and come back together?
Wow.
I want to know.
These are the hard-hitting questions. Exactly. Exactly.
No one's talking about this, and I want an answer.
Well, okay, let's reference the scripture here. What can we find? But like, I don't know. Like, there's like Jacob wrestling with the angel, right? Oh yeah.
But what about Ezekiel, the Valley of Bones? The bones come back together.
Yes, you're so right.
So maybe we can split apart, but God can always stitch us right back together, like that girl in Jack the Skeleton. Remember the girl he falls in love with, and she just sews her arm back on? Yeah. That's the immortals.
That has to happen, because I'm assuming it's not like a vampire where it's like you're immortal until you get killed. You know, it has to be that you are immortal and incapable of dying. Right?
Incapable
that has to be
of dying. So your body has to be self-healing, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like,
you have to.
I don't know if you grow... Maybe, okay, third option, you grow your limbs back like a salamander.
That is a terrifying image. Like, that is a really scary image.
Didn't that happen in, like, Peter Pettigrew and Harry Potter? He kind of, like, grows out of a rat into a human. It's very disturbing.
Yes,
but
very body horror.
Yeah, that's also a third option I didn't think of until right now.
Don't like that one, personally.
Yeah, I feel like I could honestly see them staying intact and just, the evil smile where they just look that person in the eye who threw the grenade and they're like, your days are numbered.
Yeah.
And
Or they kind of just like,
shit,
we just kind of like, you just turn into a mist or something temporarily.
Oh, yeah.
You become in the form of mist.
That would be badass,
Yeah.
actually. Is that an option?
I mean, I would choose that. I would request that.
Can we shapeshift? Could I be a werewolf? We're asking the deep questions here.
This is what I wanted to know. As a kid, this could have changed everything for me.
Yeah, maybe I will sign up for that because, wait a second.
Yeah,
there might be a lot of options to explore before I say no.
Yeah,
maybe I need to go back to meeting after all.
We need to ask somebody. This.
If someone can confirm it using scripture, let me know if I can be a werewolf and just like go on the hunt at the full moon. And that's Armageddon. Yeah. I mean, we could run together, Chloe. You could be my pack.
Yes. I would love that. We could be a pack.
We could hang out.
We could start our own pack.
Really besties. Yeah.
However, I did hear a rumor that in the kingdom, the sun will stand still. Like, there will be no more darkness. So, therefore, no more full moons.
No more full moon. What are the witches going to do?
I don't
Shit, there's going to be no witches.
There's going to be no more moon rituals.
I'm not going to have any friends.
I know.
All my friends are witches.
Neither. There's going to be no more astrology, like nothing, the rotation of the planets potentially going to stop.
Won't be able to make moon water.
No, I know. There's a lot of dilemmas we'd have to overcome. No.
There's a lot of problems. Yeah. I'm not into that.
No,
what is sunlight without darkness?
Exactly. And
you need a balance.
I know this is jumping ahead, but how on earth is that going to impact the bountiful harvests that we are supposedly going to have,
Do you mind if I get really nerdy?
No,
because I spent over a decade in the horticulture field.
Oh, amazing.
So, I know too much where even, there's a lot of conversations around climate change right now. And even if you just mess with the heat-cold cycles, so much happens.
Yeah.
So one concern is the maple syrup industry.
Okay.
Others are like apples. And I believe it's because, if I'm remembering correctly, both of those are very cold dependent. And so, I mean, obviously with the maple, most people know they tap the trees in the winter and it has to flow. But I believe if you don't have the cold, that is disturbed.
Okay,
is my understanding, and it's not good
sense.
for the trees, and so the range is moving northwards towards Canada, so less in the U.S., which is obviously a concern for the U.S. farmers, but also with the apple trees, if they don't have that cold dormant period, it throws off their blooms and it throws off the harvest.
Yeah.
So even just thinking the way nature works relies on balance. It relies on the cold as well as the warm season. It relies on the sun as well as the night cycle. Like when you have pollinators, they get up at the crack of dawn and they're out doing their stuff. But at night, you can find the bees just sleeping. They go back to their hives if they're, the honeybees.
Yeah.
And so it's just fascinating when you actually are interested in ecology and interested in the world outside.
Yeah.
And understanding how everything interplays.
Yeah.
It's terrifying to hear that.
Yeah.
Because God would have to basically create a new creation that does not depend on balance, and it depends on only prosperity. What does that look like to have a world where there's only prosperity? Where do we still have pollinators then? Because wouldn't you still need bees? So do they get no rest?
Right.
Because they have to pollinate all day and what would have been all night if we still have a 24-hour cycle. But is the earth spinning? I don't know. Does he just leave half in the cold and we just eternally have the same cycle? Because wouldn't that make sense if there's no night?
I was,
the earth isn't rotating?
Yeah, exactly. I was taught that it would be God's glory. All the stories about God's glory being a bright light?
Mean?
Exactly. It's God will be all in all. God's glory will fill the entire earth. So
is his glory like a bright light?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
Do you remember the story? That's what I was taught. The story about when Moses goes up into the mountain to get the 10 Commandments,
and he was blinded.
And he was blinded because of God's glory.
His glory is the light.
Yeah, that light is what is going to be filling the whole earth. So
that sounds difficult. Do we get sunglasses?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like we're being blinded all the time. But like you said, with
awful,
nature relies on balance. Don't you kind of feel the same way with people? You can't have somebody who's just in a eternal blissful state Like there's, like even human beings rely on cycles and flow of like feeling good and feeling bad. And there's a lot of like cyclical aspects to humans, which is why a lot of growth comes from that. And that's what scared me the most about this idea that I will have all that taken away as a saint, is there's not going to be any more fluctuation of experience anymore. There will be no more pain.
To dull the emotions too,
well, right.
You're not allowed to feel sad. You're not allowed
there's
to
no
feel
more
angry.
pain.
You're not allowed
Suffering.
to have anything that would be like a negative emotion. Like we're being gaslighted. It's like you have to be happy all the time.
Yeah, it's like there's going to be no more pain and suffering. So that that means everything is only going to be good all the time. But what feels good if you don't know what bad feels like? That's part of what really, that was like where a lot of my questions arose from, is like, how does that work internally? You know, like it's nature is balanced for a reason. Like nature is perfect as it is. I mean, I know humans have screwed a lot up, but like humans and nature can go hand in hand if they're like, you know, if you tap into that. But what it sounds like is going to happen is like that nature, that cycle is going to be stopped, and it's only going to be light and positive and life and no more death. It's like the definition of spiritual bypassing in my view. It's like what do you mean no more suffering, no more sadness? We're never going to be sad again. It's like, well then what are we doing all day? Like,
and
what
is
happening?
In the kingdom won't miss us because they're like, I want you to be in the kingdom, or I won't have you there, and I'll be sad about it. I'm like, you,
it's like, well, you won't care.
You can't be.
No, you will be incapable of suffering about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God's going to wipe that away. But what does that mean to have your emotions forced into being happy all the time?
Yeah. And is that even what's being said? Or is it just saying there'll be no more suffering? So we'll just kind of be in this like neutral, like who knows? Muted? Yeah. Are we just these like muted? It's not said. So I will not be signing up for that is too much for me to agree to. Like, I can't go there.
Can you actually experience true joy in that situation?
Exactly. Because
I don't think you could. Because I think like you find joy when something special happens to you, but also when you can appreciate it.
Well, it's all relative, right? What is joy if you have nothing negative to relate it to? If all you ever knew is bliss.
One interesting I wanted to add on to your thought was if you've heard this theory of gratitude, where it's not about counting the positives. Like with this situation, it's counting, I won't have suffering, I won't have death. Great, these are all my positives I'm counting. But true gratitude comes from often looking back and thinking about if you lost what you already had. So if you say, what if I didn't have my partner? What if I didn't have my pets? What if I didn't have my home? You trigger these feelings of gratitude because you think about the loss of them. Yeah. So I find that kind of relevant here, where we're talking about what you would lose. And I'm like, I'm grateful for my humanity. I don't want to lose my humanity. Yeah. And the thought of losing something makes you feel sad, and that's what makes you feel grateful, right? Is the potential for that thing to be gone. And you can't lose it. No one's ever going to die again. No one's ever going to do this. Like, and humans are so adaptable. I feel like we'll just take everything for granted, and we won't truly be happy if we still are wired the way humans are wired, where we adapt to things once we get them. Yeah, it goes against nature, I find. The whole idea of the kingdom and having our flesh, our humanity kind of turned off. Or change to be like the angels. And if you dive into, you know, what is that? What are the angels talked about in the Bible? Like, how are they described? Very vaguely. Very vaguely. Like, okay. Do you want to transition to questions on the Millennium? Sure. So I always thought that the Millennium was kind of like the beta version of the kingdom, where Jesus is setting up a kingdom and it's going to be similar to what it will be forever, but God's not there yet. That's not quite what Christadelphian Stephen Hughes writes about in his book. I found this a little ominous. All right. He wrote that, quote, "It will take time for adjustments to be made and for people to see the benefits to their way of life. It will not happen overnight, but there is to be a period of 1,000 years for the glorious refreshing of the earth's people before God's program is complete," unquote. Does that feel exciting? The language being used there. It's not exciting. A little ominous. Yeah. Yeah. And so instead of it being like, oh, the kingdom's here, things are great, instead he was saying that, no, this is going to be really slow. Like, we need that 1,000 years. You're going to be going from the end times to trying to see things getting better. Yeah. And Jesus has to initiate this like re-education and like this program for the earth. I love
that word.
Yeah, that feels super dystopian to me.
Yes, very dystopian.
And so we start again getting into some of the logistics, like how does Jesus rule the entire planet?
Yeah.
And also, in this scenario, does Israel just give up being Israel and be like, oh, Jesus, take the wheel, and like let him take over that like nation first? Because he's supposed to be ruling from Jerusalem, and like I'm just gonna say, like, the current leaders I don't think are gonna be like, oh, hey, have fun with this, we don't need to be in control, we hate having power and authority over this.
I'm not sure if you were taught this, but I was taught, and I can't remember right now how it was figured out if there's an actual verse that references this, but in Armageddon 70% of Israel will be destroyed. So
I have never heard of this 70% figure in my life. I don't remember that.
I do think there's an actual verse that says, like, you know, four score and 70 upon set. Like, I don't know. There's a bunch of numbers.
Some sort of biblical numbers.
Yeah, some sort of biblical like number chart.
70% died.
Yeah. So I was taught that Israel will basically be nothing by the end of Armageddon. So those that will remain,
destroy it.
Yeah, he's just going to destroy it, because at this point they're all evil anyway, and they've all like rejected God. So they're problem solved. They'll be like everyone else in the world. Like, they'll have no choice, you know.
Which is crazy, because like the Jews were God's people for so long, and that's like a pretty high.
Yeah, it's a big number
of Jewish people.
Yeah, it's a big number to wipe them out.
Yeah, that's wild. But I could actually see them totally being like, "Oh, fuck Jesus, we're gonna send out our
for
tanks."
Sure. Yeah, they would do that.
Like, we're actually, we would fight Jesus.
Yeah, they would. I believe.
But even like logistically for Jesus, like, is he going to initiate one currency? Because in this book, he's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go back to like shekels and talents for our currency." And he says, "Oh, we're gonna have one language," but didn't specify what language. So, like, are we gonna have to learn Hebrew? Is that the language?
I was taught that as well. That it would go back to one language.
Which language did they say?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Hebrew, but it was, you know, whatever was spoken before the Tower of Babel. You know, like the original, but no one knows. But I think if I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure it was just Hebrew.
Okay,
that they
that's
believe.
What I would just gut instinct. That's what I think it would be. I think John Thomas, if he could have picked, he would have picked Greek.
Yeah,
because he fucking loved Greek.
Okay.
It's up to Jesus, I'm pretty sure, not John Thomas.
Okay.
Also, do you think we're all going to drive on the same side of the road? Because that's one thing about going to Europe. I'm like, well, I'd be on the wrong side. So, like, that's kind of a positive. And we'd all, presumably this metric or imperial, all that stuff, we would have the same measuring system, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some positives, maybe.
Yeah, a couple things here and there.
A couple things he'd straighten out. If it's all one ruler, we have a chance to just straighten that all up. Here's a fun one, and tell me if you've heard of this, because I have never heard of this, and I found it, and it's just interesting, so I threw it in there. I'm not throwing it in because it's common.
Okay.
Why does Jesus confiscate everyone's guns? That's one of his top priorities. Yeah, it's one of his top priorities. Have you heard this?
I have never heard this in my life.
I pulled a quote.
Okay.
And at the end of it, there's a second part that I also want to talk about. I know you will pick up on this, so wait till the end of the quote and you will know what I'm talking about. Okay. So in that Stephen Hughes book, it talks about Jesus confiscating guns from the surviving humans, obviously not the immortals. Quote, "All weapons are to be handed in. A second step might be an announcement to try to collect those hidden weapons with a threat of punishment for non-compliance. Even after this, some weapons will probably be hidden away and will have to be collected by force. The saints will be able to read people's minds and discover where weapons are hidden," unquote.
Yes, 100%. I was taught that we'd be able to read people's minds.
He can read people's minds?
Yeah.
I don't remember that part.
Yes.
Can Jesus read minds?
Yeah. It was because Jesus could read minds, and therefore the angels were above Jesus. So therefore,
if
angels,
we're like the angels,
yes, we'll be able to read minds.
We can read minds.
That
terrifying.
Confiscating guns. Okay, now
by force.
By force. Now that you read that, It is interesting because I remember a lot of emphasis on the verse that says all weapons will be turned into plows.
I remember that one, yes.
And obviously it says
like,
swords.
Oh, but I thought it was just like, oh, they'll just be like, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah,
I don't need it. Like, that's what I thought was voluntarily giving
I kind
up.
of thought that too. So it's funny how he's like kind of creating this fantasy version where it's like everyone's going to want
They're gonna
their
go
guns. Yeah, and we're going to like GPS track in our mind.
They want those weapons.
Yeah, that's funny. That's some
like, again, dystopian.
It's
like,
so dystopian. It sounds like Hunger Games-ish. Yeah, it definitely does.
They're like, we do not want any threats to Jesus' rule, so Jesus will like become a dictator. Truly be like, you cannot even have the means to try to overthrow me. And he's fucking immortal and all-knowing.
Exactly. So who cares if people have guns? It doesn't matter to Jesus.
Yeah, who are they going to kill?
Exactly.
They're immortal.
Yeah, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. It really, it's just void of
I would not
logic.
waste my time trying to collect guns when they can't kill me.
Exactly. It's so dumb.
Sense.
And eventually everyone's going to be peaceful or like wanting peace anyway. So
yeah,
like, I don't know. Maybe that's part of the rebellion stage.
Yeah, it was leading up to the rebellion, so they said, like, well, Jesus obviously is going to have to try to stifle rebellion while he's reprogramming the earth.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Putting God's program on the earth. So that was the thing, was like, well, we have to reduce dissent and the means for dissent to manifest. So yeah, we have to confiscate all of the weapons, apparently.
It's funny how human that logic sounds,
right?
You know? Like,
it's like they forgot that they're going to be immortal. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Kill each other? Well, like, God was going to kill them anyways at the second judgment if they weren't good. So, like, what's the point with the weapons? Like, it's
so dumb.
It
so
either
dumb.
Doesn't matter, or it just does what was going to happen in the end anyways.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. That's very bizarre, but it was a fun way to introduce mind reading
to
the story.
For sure.
Because that's what we will be using mind reading for, is to find weapons. It's because again, we are soldiers first and foremost.
Yes. Can't forget.
We can't use that for good. I mean, I'd rather just use that to like communicate with animals.
Me too.
Do that. Right? Like, it seems better.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he needs some water.
Yeah.
He asked me for the mind connection we have.
Aww.
And then, if immortals can't sin, does that mean they're nice all the time? Or can they still be evil as long as it's not a sin? Because, like, God was okay with people owning slaves.
Yeah.
So, like, that, I would categorize that as evil, but God doesn't categorize as a sin, because sin does not equal evil. So, like,
that is a good question.
Slavery? Or are people nice as opposed to not?
Well, I mean, the angel wrestled with Jacob, right? Like, he physically fought him. So, I mean, the angels are capable of being violent, right?
Yes.
So, that's a good question. Like, is it like a non-violent, peaceful, like pacifist utopia, or is it actually going to be like there's variance in what we're allowed to do?
I don't know, because sin is categorized so differently than morality.
Yes.
Yeah. So, good question. And I don't know if that changes after the millennium into the kingdom, because again, you still have humanity, you still have sin, you still have death. So, and I mean, what if John Thomas is like, well, they're evil anyways?
Yeah.
You know, like, and again, it keeps saying the saints are going to be rulers. So that implies a lower class. Like, are mortals, the humans that were not immortal, are they? What does that mean if they're being ruled?
Right. So, because we're talking about before the eternity, right? In the millennium.
This is still millennium, I would say.
I guess I was under the assumption that, like, there will still be, quote, flesh in the millennium. So
yeah, there's still evil human nature.
Yeah, so there will still be need for, like, harsh rulership and, you know, like, judgment, I guess.
Because
but that's
they're
a good
still
question.
Sinning.
Yeah, so they're still sinning, so therefore there needs to be some kind of crackdown.
Yeah, the saints have to be the rulers, judges, kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something not right about that to me.
Yeah.
And then, do you think the end times kind of continue through the 1,000 years? Like, the war, the natural disasters. do you think they continue or they get better and like pause once Jesus comes?
That's
so they're
true.
supposed to get worse and worse as the birth pangs of Christ, as I've heard them described.
Yes. Oh,
but then
same.
when you have, I guess, the second birth of Christ or whatever, where he returns, does that stop? Does like the world start healing? Like, does the natural disasters go away?
I remember being taught that. See, this is why it's just so much vagueness. But I was always
there's no real answer.
No, there's no real answer
by any means.
Yeah, it was always like there's two options, right? Where like all of humanity could be erased to some extent, like no more modern technology, no more like trashing the environment, and so like over time the earth will heal. But then I also heard that like Jesus will come back and like miraculously overnight the earth will be restored to like its former glory.
Yeah, like the Garden of Eden.
Like we're back to the Garden of Eden. So in my head, like if you're thinking about the verses where it's like the lion will lay down with the lamb and like the children will be playing with vipers and stuff like that. It's like that is during the millennium, right? So the earth has to, in some regard, has to go back to Garden of Eden status.
Yeah, to more of a peaceful situation.
Yeah, I can't see it taking 1,000 years to go from the destruction of Armageddon to like, okay, all our modern technology breaks down, and then over a long 1,000 years, the earth kind of heals. Like, that doesn't really make sense with a lot of the verses either.
That's
you
fair.
know, of like, to me anyway, I don't remember, again, there's not much that was taught. You were just left to question all this stuff.
They're like, just look forward to the kingdom.
Just
Don't worry
imagine
about the rest.
what you want to imagine, you know?
Yeah,
Close your eyes.
It's really nice.
Close your eyes and have a vision about what you want the kingdom to be.
Yeah, one person in the Exorcism Facebook group shared about someone who's really excited to ride lions in the kingdom.
Yeah.
That's my vision. I'm riding lions. And I was like, great, good for you. I don't think that's in the Bible, but if whatever gets you through the meeting, okay.
Yeah.
I have never heard this next one. I don't know if you've ever heard it. So again, I'll be curious. Will there be forced sterilization at the end of the millennium where women are no longer able to get pregnant? And if so, is it supernatural or medical where they're like bringing people in doing surgery to sterilize them? Or is it like, oh, I can't get pregnant. So weird. And
at
like
the end of the millennium.
That happens. Okay, so let me read the quote from Stephen Hughes.
Yeah,
because I've never heard this before. Only in him. And of course, he wrote it down so I can read it to you. As opposed to trying to remember stuff from meeting 2 decades ago. Okay, quote, could there be other reasons for the invasion? A possible reason is that no babies will be born close to the end of the millennium.
What?
As we all know in general, the desire to have children runs very deep. Written by a man. This will upset a lot of people, especially those who have just got married at the end of the millennium. Those in the kingdom who study their Bibles will know that there must come a point close to the end of the millennium when no more children will be born. When we think about the implications, this really has to be the case. If children were born right up to the time of the second resurrection and judgment, there would not be enough time for the development of character. Someone cannot be born of spirit, be immortalized, without first being born of water, which requires an adequate belief and understanding of the truth. One solution would be for all children born just before the end of the kingdom to live beyond the millennium until they reached a responsible age. However, they would have to undergo a judgment as all others did before in the first or second judgments, but we don't read of a third judgment. The only way of preventing this from occurring is to prevent people from having children.
Oh, wow.
The line has to be drawn somewhere. Maybe an ultimatum will be issued. Reverse the infertility or we attack Jerusalem. Unquote.
That is left me speechless. I feel like he is noticing all the holes in logic. He is noticing the plot holes. And he's being like, okay.
Admits, he's like, yes. There's no third judgment. He's like, wait, what happens to children born if they're still able to get married and have humans and give birth during the millennium? Because
the more
humans
you
are
think
still
about
alive.
This, it makes no sense the more you think about it. So this
and I
crazy
never would
thing.
have thought about it.
Yeah, truly.
This was not on my list of like, oh, what happens to those babies born at the end of the millennium? Not on my list.
Never have I ever thought about that my whole life. That is so funny,
and he's
actually.
like, oh, this is so important. This is going to cause the rebellion. He believes that this is what initiates the second Armageddon he refers to. It's because women are so desperate to have children.
You know what?
That's
of course.
all women they all,
That's
as soon as
all
they get
we
married,
think
they're like,
about.
you know what I want? All I want is a child.
Yeah.
And as many children as I can pop out with my very faithful Christadelphian husband.
Yeah, that's all we think about constantly.
That's all we think about as women is just when can I have another child?
I like that he's asking these questions, though, because it's a good
question.
It illuminates how insane it all sounds and how insane it all is. Like,
and this is the hoops you have to jump through to make it work, where you can still believe it. He's like, well, this is a problem, but instead of being like, oh, this is a problem, therefore Christadelphianism doesn't make sense. He's like, no, that means that this is going to start a war. I'm like, oh, okay.
You know, I kind of love that, because in my area, at least, if you were to ask any of these, I will just say, someone like this, Hughes, people who I'm around, like Christadelphians, would never for 1 second take his word seriously. It, like, where I was around, it was like, we are not meant to even question that. Like, he's putting,
like, it's beyond our understanding,
it's beyond our comprehension, and like, how dare we? God. How dare we, with our small human mind, come up with this measly plan that we think, like, it would almost be like,
it's about human arrogance, right?
That would be seen as arrogance for him to assume these things are going to happen.
But at the same time, that means they have to live with not knowing, and they're like,
exactly.
I don't know.
That's just a way to stop people from thinking deeply about it, I think.
Yeah, it's the thought terminating cliches, because it's a way to stop you from continuing critical thinking.
Exactly.
It says, you don't know, you'll never know,
and
it just stops you thinking.
Yeah, that's what I was taught. I was even shut down asking questions about angels. Like, that's how much they don't really want you questioning things, you know?
But if we're supposed to be like the angels, you should want to know about them. Absolutely.
Exactly. And that's the thing, though. It's like, see, you start questioning, you start coming up with crazy theories like Hughes, you know? Like,
I mean, not wrong.
This is what happens when you think too much, is that your human arrogance gets in the way. Like, that's kind of the mentality that I was brought up with. But it's crazy.
At least says, like, maybe an ultimatum will be issued.
Okay.
No, but like
he says maybe. Yeah.
I love that he's like, a line has to be drawn somewhere.
Yeah. You know what? Good point. Where's the line going to be drawn?
Like, it means that all of the women have to be sterile or sterilized. That's my other concern. Is I was like, is this a forced sterilization situation where like all of the women have to be sterilized before God comes back to the earth? That's a little concerning for the women.
Yeah.
I would want to know.
Right, but it's beyond just babies. It's like the age of accountability, right? So like,
they have to be at an age where they could get baptized, which again is not a hard age where it's like, at 10 years old.
Yeah, exactly. So it's different for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, the range is usually anywhere from like 11 to like 25.
Yeah, exactly.
The average range for a Christadelphian who is born into it to choose to be baptized.
Yeah, so you're telling me in the Millennium, like, people are still going to be pressured to get baptized young, you know? Like, at the end of the Millennium.
Choose Christ, even if he's right fucking there.
Yeah, exactly.
He really needs to dunk me? Seriously? Like, can he actually do it? Do you think Jesus baptizes people in the kingdom?
Surely. I would think surely.
I would want Jesus to do it. If I could pick anyone, I would want Jesus to do it.
Listen, I was taught that all these old Bible characters would simply be there to stand around and answer our questions. So I think that, if anything, Jesus would want to baptize people. You know? Like,
that would be so much fun to have, like, story time with Bible characters.
That's what I was taught in Sunday school. It's like, what question would you want to ask?
Some crazy stories.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can only imagine, be like, there was this one time God told me to hold my son up a mountain and try to sacrifice him, and then it was the craziest thing because it stopped me from doing it. I'm like,
we're like, okay, we've all heard the story.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Wait, I know this one.
Yeah, I know this story. Tell us a different story.
All right, let's keep going. So next, Ezekiel's temple. This is the focal point too of this time period, is that God really, 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 really wants a temple again. He's really sad he doesn't have a big, beautiful temple that's like a mile around on each wall, apparently. And so he told Ezekiel, I have dreams one day of having a giant temple. And in the middle, it will look like a volcano. And that's where you're going to do animal sacrifices again in order to prepare for me coming back. Apparently, these designs, which are so ubiquitous throughout the Christadelphians, you might see these pictures hang up on walls in different ecclesial halls. You might see them during presentations. They came from a guy named Henry Sully, and apparently they're not based on the Bible. I've only recently learned this is a very different perspective, apparently. than what was written in the Bible, but I can't get through Ezekiel and pay attention. So I would never know. I dissociate every time. It's too much numbers. And cubits for me. I can't make sense of it. But basically, I highly recommend if you're listening and you haven't seen this, so anyone that was not a Christadelphian, basically, because all of us have probably seen it, look up either like Christadelphian Ezekiel Temple or like Henry Sully Ezekiel Temple, and you'll see what I mean. It's basically 4 walls that kind of look like they maybe came out like Britain or something. And then you have a big circle in the middle of some sort of other wall structure, and then in the middle it looks like a giant volcano with like smoke coming out the top of it. And on the side there's like a big river, and apparently there's a river coming down the one side of the mountain from a rock on the top of the mountain, because the Bible loves stories where water comes out of the rock. And that like river is important, and of course it's important for our prosperous crops, Chloe.
Yes, very important.
Yeah, so those are some of the main elements of this temple that God really has his eternal heart set on. There's a lot of smoke, which feels very Old Testament to me, and it does seem to be related to like God's involvement with this before he comes down. I would say in person, but obviously he's not really like a person. However he comes down, whatever form. But in the Old Testament, there was a lot of times where like when they were in the 40 years wandering the desert, I believe they kind of followed like a pillar of smoke through the desert, and that's kind of what you see in this. It looks like smoke. Apparently there are sacrifices being made at the top of this. It just looks like a fucking volcano, but this giant hill, mound, whatever we're calling it, mountain. And so fire also comes down from, again, quote unquote, heaven. So from the sky, I'm going to say. And there's also a cloud. There's just like a big cloud over it. So these earthly elements of like wind, fire, and air they're all God. So they quote Isaiah. It says that there will be a permanent cloud existing over the altar in this temple, a cloud and smoke by day and a shining of a flame of fire by night. And then there's, the tabernacle. So that was Isaiah 4 they quoted. And then it was funny because he's like, oh, the cloud will help exclude bad weather from the temple because it's all outdoor.
You gotta think logically here. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he says, quote, the pillar of cloud will exist above the central mound, and it will exclude bad weather from the temple. So there will never be a time when sacrifices cannot be presented. Access to God will be available 24/7.
Oh, man.
This same cloud will provide illumination at night, which again suggests a 24-hour operation, unquote.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's like a Wawa. It's like a convenience store.
Exactly.
It's
just like a 24/7 Wawa. That's hilarious. I've never heard that.
Instead of getting a sandwich, you give your sandwich to the Lord. You
your
sacrifice
12 pigeons and 3 goats to the Lord. Yeah.
Exactly. I feel bad for animals in the kingdom.
I feel very bad. Yeah.
Because they get the short end of the stick. I think if you were really poor, though, you could like donate grain covered in oil or something like that. So that would be my choice, is the vegan option of sacrifices.
Yes. Yeah.
Not that I am vegan, but these animals don't need to fucking die to just be burned to God 24/7. God needs 24/7 dead animals. 24/7. God loves dead animals.
Nothing more than the smell of barbecue. There's a lot of verses, right, that talk about like the smell, like the scent rising up to God.
To the Lord.
Yes, the smell is pleasing to the Lord.
Pleasing to the Lord. Yeah, the aroma is pleasing to the Lord. I remember that over and over and over again during the sacrifices era of the Israelites. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And so, on that note, it does sound like most Christadelphians believe that there will be animal sacrifices, and the Hughes book that I read did say animal sacrifices during the Millennium, so I have some fun quotes for you.
Okay, great. I'm excited to hear.
But it's also crazy to me because, like, we've already transitioned to wine drinking, so it's weird that we're reverting back to blood. Like, we already got away from the blood.
Yeah.
So I don't get it.
I also still don't get it. Like,
this feels very Old Testament to me. Even just like having this temple where like you have the smoke coming out. I was like, wait, we got rid of that a long time ago. So here's our first quote Quote, "It is apparent on reading the record in Ezekiel that animal sacrifices will be offered in the kingdom in a similar fashion as under the law of Moses in Old Testament times. At first sight, we might think that this is a bit retro and primitive," unquote. But then he starts getting a little more specific. Quote, "The mortal population who will visit the temple will present animals for sacrifice to saints stationed at the gates of the central circular building. The saints will walk up the steps on the side of the mountain and place the sacrifice on the altar. No doubt for efficiency, several sacrifices will be placed on the altar at the same time. After a certain number have been placed on the altar, if the sacrifice is accepted, the fire will descend from the sky to ignite the sacrifices. Lack of fire will signify rejection of one of the sacrifices. Imagine the extreme tension in amongst the group of presenters when this happens. The question on everyone's mind will be, am I the culprit? The offending sacrifice will be removed and the offender removed from the congregation to suffer the consequences.
Okay.
Imagine the relief of those present when fire does finally descend, indicating acceptance. They will then be able to relax in one of the restaurants for a celebratory meal."
What?
That's life in the kingdom, baby!
Nothing sounds more tempting to me than this scenario right here. So did you say the
anxiety of this?
This is crazy. Did you say that they will be giving the sacrifices to the saints, or it's the saints are kind of facilitating?
So remember, the saints are going to be priests.
Yes.
The saints. This is what it means apparently by being a priest. It means you take the fucking goat up the mountain. You have to walk it up the mountain. You have to kill it. You have to pour its blood out. And then you have to do it again until you fill the altar with these dead goats, pigeons, whatever the hell they're sacrificing. Again, refer to the Old Testament if you want more detail on that, not me. And then they wait for fire to just blow out of the sky and incinerate it.
Right.
Like it's in a furnace. And if that happens, that's the good situation. Yeah. That's the good scenario.
Okay. I thought for a moment that you meant that they were coming to give their offerings, like offer it to the saints. I was like,
no, the saints are being worshipped. That's not what it is. It's the saints are the mediaries still to God.
Yes,
they're like the Old Testament priests, where they're able to go to like the more holy places and stuff.
Right. Yeah,
they do the services to try to appease God, but it's it feels like they're like, this is like that sin and stuff, right? So you have to go through this process of spilling blood in order to be found acceptable to God.
Right.
And if you're not, it sounds like you get taken out back and shot, to be quite honest.
Literally, I'm trying to remember any stories of like people, because there's a lot of stories of people who sacrificed, like Cain and Abel, right? Like,
and they weren't acceptable. He wasn't
to God. His offering wasn't accepted. Yeah. But I can't remember in this context, like in Judges and stuff, or whenever this was happening, like, what were you supposed to do? Like, I
mean, sometimes this Old Testament God, remember he would like split open the earth and the whole families would go into the earth and it would just close back up again.
In the wilderness, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
So like,
it sounds very scary and very like, it makes no sense. It's too scary for me. Number one, this is too scary. Number two, it's like Jesus is here.
Jesus is here, but Jesus is not a mediator. His blood does not count for shit anymore.
Right.
It does not fucking matter that he gave his life for us anymore. We need to go back to the goats. It's kidding. It's the old world.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, except now you're here forever.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the ending really shocked me. You'll be able to relax in a restaurant for a celebratory meal?
That cracks
What are we eating? Can I eat my sacrifice at least?
I think
God already cooked it for me.
Good point, because the saints don't need to eat. We don't sleep or eat as saints. So what are the saints?
These are the humans. These are the humans eating.
So like, but wasn't it that the priest would get a portion of the offering to be like as their kind of...
that was... But come on, you can't do that all day.
No.
You can't eat part of these.
No.
24/7.
Yeah, 24/7 just eating meat. Like, we got the meat sweats here.
The meat sweats.
Yeah. That is so funny. Oh, thank goodness our sacrifice was accepted. Let's go celebrate in the restaurant.
Let's go celebrate not being killed because our sacrifice was not found acceptable by God for some reason. I mean, God's not going to tell you, like, how would you even find out? They're just one at a time pulling goats off there and just, we'll try again.
It does beg the question, like, I know you mentioned this. This is one place on the entire planet. And everybody is going to be required to do this. So
and
how
they have to do it
even,
here. They all
it
have
has
get
to be here.
This temple, it's required apparently.
And I remember being taught that, like, yes, you know, some families would take months to trek to the temple, but it's like worldwide. That makes no sense.
Worldwide,
like
by boat too. They said there's no airplanes.
Yeah, there's no more airplanes. There's no more like communication or travel.
Yep.
So how is this supposed to happen? Like, genuinely,
no idea.
that is craziness.
Oh, this quote was funny. I already see part of it that I want to read.
Okay.
Again, about the punishment of being found not worthy, like your sacrifice not being not worthy. Okay, here's one. Quote, "No doubt there will be some who come up to Jerusalem who have committed adultery. They might think they might think that with the thousands of people pouring into the temple, God is not going to know about their indiscretion committed months or maybe even years ago. Maybe they will have a chance to repent of their sin before traveling to the temple, but won't avail themselves of the opportunities they think they can get away with it. But at the temple, it will be too late," unquote.
What?
I think people get killed at this temple. Like,
It
this is
sounds
really
like
dark.
it. It really
The
does
mortals
sound like it.
May or may not make it out alive.
It doesn't, I guess, so everybody's going to be required, again, this is stuff that I was not specifically taught, but like everyone's going to be required to come make these sacrifices. But clearly people are still getting baptized in the name of Jesus. So what?
Both are somehow happening.
Both are somehow happening. So how on earth is it supposed to happen where you're baptized and you have access to forgiveness? Could you not just quickly say a prayer of forgiveness in line for the sacrifice and be like?
You probably should get baptized on the way just to be safe.
Exactly. Yeah. So why is there this scenario where people are sinners with no coverage? Yeah, and without the possibility of forgiveness, going up to make sacrifices, like it makes no sense either way.
I like that he acts like people just catalog sins and they're like,
I know.
I'm gonna trick God because I sinned years ago and he'll never know. And I'm like, who actually thinks like that?
Nobody thinks like that. That is such a weird fantasy version of this.
Made up.
It's very made
very
up.
Cartoony.
Yeah, like we're all just little tricksters cackling, like, hey, I'm gonna trick God. Like,
yeah, but like
it doesn't happen.
I can't remember what we ate for breakfast last week, let alone
exactly
a
mistake.
That is not a sin.
Yeah, and people don't think like that unless you're conditioned to think about sin. You know, like
because sin doesn't. I don't believe sin exists.
I
It's
don't
not
believe
something
either.
that you would naturally think about or feel. It's
No.
not like an emotion.
No.
And it's not something that you experience necessarily. The only thing is you would only believe in sin if you're told sin exists.
Yeah.
And are taught to believe in it, even though you can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't experience it. And it's at a church. So if you never go to church, you're never going to believe in sin. And they're like, oh, well, sin will be gone. And I was like, sin does not affect my day-to-day life.
Exactly.
At all, actually.
Exactly.
Like, you could get rid of sin today and I would never know.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah,
it has no standing on my life.
But I guess that's our job as saints, is to tell everybody at the beginning, right, about sin. So in this scenario, everybody will know.
Yeah, I mean, he is Santa. He knows.
He knows when you're bad. He knows when you're good.
Yeah, he knows when you've sinned and when you've asked for forgiveness. I'm also trying to figure out, does the animal sacrifice go away at the end of the millennium? Because if there's no suffering, you would think animal suffering should count. Again, not a vegan, but just throwing it out there. I do love animals. And if no one's able to be born again, what happens if you're killing them? But also, I thought there was no death. So I got really confused. I don't think this is a sustainable option, basically.
No, I wasn't taught that. I was taught that at the end of the millennium, like, the famous quote, God will be all in all. So there will be no more need for any more atonement, any more sacrifices.
There's no sin.
Yeah, there's no more sin. So there's nothing to continually cover or forgive anymore.
But my question kind of still stands. The animals that weren't sacrificed, I mean, let's talk about like horses and shit. Like, they were never on the sacrificial altar to begin with. That's pretty heavy, dragging them up a mountain.
Yeah.
We can never have a new horse, and I guess horses will never die. Like, that's my question. If I get a pet horse, do I have a pet horse for eternity? If I see a cow in a field, is that the same cow I see an eternity later? Like, if I have a cat, is my cat going to survive and live with me forever? Do all animals die, or do all animals live and they're just in a static state of existence?
That's true. I mean, I guess if you're going to take the verse as is, it means no more death.
No more
death on the entire, no more suffering, no more death.
And remember that verse we've already talked about, the lion shall lie down with the lamb.
Yeah,
there's fucking lions, there's fucking lambs. It says right there that these animals are going to be there, but they can't die. So, I mean, that lion's obviously able to eat straw or whatever now. So not eating and killing the other animals. And again, like no death, no suffering. I mean, I would suffer if someone was trying to eat me.
Yeah, exactly.
But that seems, it's hard for me to imagine, like what's the set amount of animals we get? Like how many dogs are we going to be allowed to have forever? We get one chance. Is it just the ones that were alive at the time and we just keep those ones forever? Or can I resurrect my dog and have my dog forever?
Exactly. I mean,
but that's different. I mean, she barks a lot, but I would have her forever. It's okay.
For sure.
You know, I love her.
I guess, like, I don't know how.
Apparently saints can resurrect, remember?
Well, exactly. True.
Resurrecting people.
And it says nothing about where the restrictions are when it comes to resurrection.
It's a loophole, I think.
Yeah, I think it is a loophole. I guess, like, you would have to... I'm assuming a Christadelphian would say something like, it will go back to like, the Garden of Eden when the animals were just meant to be companions. Or,
do you think they can talk? Because there was a talking snake in the Garden of Eden.
I was taught that, like, we would be able to understand animals. That was, like... Whoa. That was my one thing as a kid that I was like, okay, yeah, you know, I guess I can get on board with that.
That could be good. It could be bad. I don't want an animal to be mean to me.
I know.
Be really sad about
then in that,
like, hey,
in that
ugly.
sense...
And I'd be like, oh.
In that sense, can animals sin? No. So, like, does that mean that, like, animals will be sentient? I think they're pure. You know? Like, it just...
What do they think about?
Exactly.
I mean, this is a little off topic, but, like, you think a frog's just sitting there like, damn, this water feels good today.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? Like,
exactly.
Like, oh, I gotta go get to work. Bye, honey. And it's like, and it's just awful.
Yeah, exactly. Are they having, complex thoughts? You know? Like,
no.
Imagine if they are having complex thoughts.
What if we never knew all this time?
They're just little philosophers down there. Like,
okay, that actually sounds amazing.
That does sound amazing.
That's the most compelling reason so far for the kingdom is being able to communicate and have amazing conversations with animals and love my pets forever.
Yeah.
That would be the best perk, actually, so far, if that's true. Once we get through the killing animals part of the plan,
1,000 whole years, you know, we got to
1,000 years of killing all of the animals that God thinks are worth killing for him because they smell good. Their blood smells good.
Delicious.
So I have a quote about the mandatory worship because I did not realize it was mandatory, but he spelled it out pretty clearly, Mr. Hughes here. Quote, travel to and from Jerusalem will be mandatory, i.e. nations will not be able to opt out. People will, of course, worship God on a daily basis wherever they happen to live in the world. However, there is this extra requirement to physically travel to Jerusalem. Yeah. Another major problem in realizing this vision, or perhaps nightmare, and again, it's his quote. His quote.
I love that.
Yeah, he's a little aware sometimes.
Yeah.
Quote, is that there simply isn't enough oil left in the world to fuel this level of air travel over the next millennia. And if there were, the extra amount of carbon dumped into the atmosphere would be a serious environmental problem. God could, of course, create the extra oil and remove the extra carbon. However, from our knowledge of the way God works, this probably won't happen. Also, the airline manufacturing industry would have to continue into the kingdom, which is not in keeping with a world that has returned to a more agricultural existence. Also, if everyone in the world was to visit the temple each year, that is about 16.4 million people per day, or 680,000 people per hour, assuming the temple is open 24/7, unquote. I love the hoops he jumped through here.
Absolutely. This is unbelievable. There's just the fascinating emphasis on air travel. And
well, he's in Australia. This man is from Australia.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, how am I going to get to Jerusalem every year?
Exactly.
He's like, I have to fly or take a boat.
Oh, that is just hysterical.
Because he's in Australia. He's not in the right place for it. It was
so good. That's so good.
He even got into the math, and he bumped off like 1 billion people from Armageddon too.
Oh, really? Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, he's like, well, accounting for Armageddon, this might be the number of people coming into the temple.
What did he say? 680,000 per day
per hour.
Per hour,
24/7. He said 16.4 million would have to go through per day. million, 16.4 million a day.
Wow. See, at that point, something supernatural needs to occur at this point.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you would think he's trying to, like, get really, like, logical about this and, like, really critically think about it.
Yeah.
But he doesn't realize he's thinking about the supernatural and trying to apply human logic and time to it.
Yeah. Like, what is going to, like,
sir.
I don't, like, what is time even going to be? Are we even going to follow a calendar like that?
There's
or is it going to... There's no night, yeah. Like, there's going to be blasting sun forever. So, it's really funny that he's gone through all of this deep thinking.
Yeah, he really did think about it deeply. And I can only imagine what it would be like to walk into the temple in this insane crowd, like the busiest place in the world you've ever been, the biggest crowd you've ever been in, 10 times that. And there's just fire coming down from the fucking sky onto a mountain. You're like, holy shit, I hope I make it out of here alive. And you're just being like, keep going. We've got thousands more to keep coming in. Shit. And then, like, one person holds up the line because their sacrifice wasn't accepted. And everyone's like, holy shit.
That's so funny. I remember that being a big thing in my ecclesia too, constantly talking about how we will all dwell in Jerusalem. And it's like, how big do you think Jerusalem is? Like, genuinely, how big do you think Jerusalem is? Like,
well, I mean, I guess they can take over the whole world.
That's true. Maybe we can just
make everything Jerusalem.
There's a loophole where now everything is Jerusalem. So you know what? That could be it. But, like, genuinely, how, like, no, not everyone is gonna reside in, like, modern day Jerusalem. It's physically impossible.
But it's funny because then you have to think about how travel goes.
Yeah.
I also have more on the traveling to Jerusalem. We have a few.
Great.
This one stuck out to me because I did not know this. I did not remember it. It sounds like it might be a little more familiar to you about the water around the temple.
Yes. Yeah.
Because my next thought was, what is it like to arrive at the temple and why does it suck? Here's my quote. Quote, when people reach the walls of the temple, they will have to prepare themselves to wade through water of varying depths. The only exception being babies and old people, mostly at the beginning of the kingdom, who need to be carried across.
Yes. Yeah.
God has decreed that people must wade through water to enter the temple. Unquote.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember? Okay, there was a Christadelphian kids book that we had. I think everybody in Ontario had it, where it was about the kingdom. I wish I could find it.
And it had this crossing
in it?
Yes,
it had imagery on the front and inside of this, like, you know, the classic, like, everything will be gold and everything will be, like, glass. And then there's this picture, all these images of, like, people wading through water and, like lifting up their skirts, carrying things, hoisting up their garments and, like, walking through water.
Yeah,
I definitely saw that.
How deep, but I can only imagine being damp and muddy and being worried about being killed by your fire sacrifice. Again, it's like fire, earth, and air.
Yeah. Very elementals.
The elements are there involved in this. One note I just had that was random was if you look at the background of the image, which I think I included in what I sent to you.
Okay.
Have you noticed that the background of Ezekiel's temple is just nothingness and it just looks like an apocalyptic landscape? That unnerves me a little bit. Look at
does.
the temple. And I'm like, have you ever looked behind the temple?
Have you ever looked at the void that lays beyond the temple?
There's not even a horizon line. It's just like mist. And there's no cities, no towns, no trees, just nothing.
It really made me think of, like, the pictures that were given to us as kids of, like, what it would look like in the wilderness for the children of Israel to wander in the wilderness. I kind of got the vibe that, like, this will be, like, an oasis in the wilderness or something. Or, like, all the world will be wiped out. So this is, like, I don't know, the peak thing.
So people are going to die on their way here because there's no food and water, it sounds like.
Yeah.
You have to pilgrimage, but there's nowhere to go to get clean water on
There's
the way.
nowhere you're going to, like cart around your coolers and stuff of food and water and, like...
I mean, we're an agricultural society now, so is anyone producing plastic coolers anymore?
Right, well, true. Like, where are we getting fresh water from? You know?
Yeah. How does that work? How do you travel when you don't have any modern stuff? Yeah. And, like, you have to travel longer distances.
You know what Christadelphians would say, though?
The whole world.
Yeah. They would say, God, all things are possible, and God provides. Like, He provided for the children of Israel in the wilderness, you know?
Manna's going to come down from heaven
will fly down from heaven, and we will drink the dew from off the grass. Yes.
Yeah, I'll drink some mossy dew. That'll work.
That'll quench my thirst.
One funny thought was, I don't know if it was the same way at your ecclesia, but I think it's actually a great thing that so many Christadelphians are engineers.
Yeah.
Because somebody's got to build this temple.
Yeah.
First off.
Yes, exactly.
So I hope they're ready to measure in cubits, but they're responsible for doing this. Don't forget the outer wall is 500 reeds long. So I hope you're ready to work in Bible math to build this temple. That'll be interesting, especially with people from all over the world. So you've got an Australian, some from the UK, and some from the US, all trying to figure out how to measure something.
Yeah, that'll be great.
So that'll work out perfectly. That will go very smoothly, I'm sure. Also, fun fact. Apparently, we need to build our own houses in the Millennium. So again, it would be a good choice to marry one of those engineers in your ecclesia if you're planning to be here.
Absolutely.
Because I don't want to build an entire fucking house. So again, I would rather sleep than have to build a house. I do not have the skill set for that. And I don't know what tools and materials are available after the apocalypse.
Right.
Like I'm going to live in like a mud hut situation. I don't know. But it is in Isaiah 65 that they shall build houses and inhabit them. You will also be planting vineyards and eating the fruit because, again, our crops. Our crops are the important thing.
Yeah.
And it says they shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. It's all about you being able to enjoy the works of your hands. So you're going to enjoy building your house or else.
Yeah. Was that specifically for like the remaining humans? Because I remember being taught that like all the saints will be doing is like doing God's bidding all the time.
Yeah. Because we're basically angels at that point.
Yeah, so we are basically angels.
You're either a king and ruler or a priest with the blood sacrifices, if you're not queasy, I guess, or you're a teacher is kind of the main list. But actually, there's a career list that Stephen Hughes put in his book.
Oh,
so
wow.
Hold your horses. Those
this.
are the ones I knew of.
Okay.
Those are the ones I heard of.
Okay.
But yeah, I actually hate this because I'm like, does that mean he destroyed my house? Now he's making me build a new one?
True.
That pisses me off, actually.
Oh.
As well as, I have a little note here that just like we were talking about, some were rulers. They're supposed to be ruling over cities. Like they have to build their own like rock houses and stone and mud. And then the immortals are just like, I'm in charge here. John Thomas shows up and he's like, I hope you're ready to work.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this sounds kind of like a nightmare, actually.
Having like a mayor that's immortal.
Yeah, I don't want an immortal ruling over me if I was one of these people who has to build my own house out of like sticks.
Honestly, yeah.
Oh, so here's so I found a quote about the first employees of the kingdom. And that's his words. First employees of the kingdom. Tell me what your guess is. Tell me your guess, because you will never guess what it is.
Okay.
I want to hear what you think.
Okay. Accessing memories of what I learned. I'm going to say like scribe.
Okay, scribe. Okay, scribe is your first guess. That sounds very biblical.
Yeah.
I like it. Very, very wrong.
Okay.
I told you would never guess it. It's not personal to you. No one would have guessed this. I guarantee it. Let me read you the quote.
Okay.
I wouldn't have guessed it. Let me tell you. Quote, we saw that the first employees of the kingdom will be bone buriers.
What?
Unquote. Somebody has to bury all those bodies from the Armageddon, dear. That's their job, is people have to go out and bury the dead. That's the first employees of the kingdom will be grave diggers.
That actually, I mean, that's very logistical. I mean, we're going to have like billions of dead people, according to him, right?
And you don't want them just rotting there.
No, it's very bad for the earth. It's very against the whole healing of the earth thing. Like, oh wow, that is so dark.
Compost the bodies. Yeah. I love that they say first employees. Like God's like, here's your salary for burying the dead.
Oh,
so that they get paid to bury the people that they killed, I guess. But here's the next one. Quote, another group of kingdom employees will be people drafted into Israel to help in the agricultural effort. As we saw earlier, a huge amount of food will be required to feed all people arriving and leaving 24/7 from Ezekiel's temple. it is possible that famines will occur elsewhere in the world, since there may be cases where the nations refuse to send representatives to Jerusalem each year, and so rain is withheld. Zechariah 14:17, unquote.
I remember hearing things about famines, but it was never for that. It was never boiled down to that reason.
It's coercion. It's to get compliance.
Yeah.
It is forced famine.
That is fascinating.
Also very dark.
So dark.
So if you don't come to Jerusalem, your family will starve.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so this is the Hunger Games. It's like, if you don't send someone, I will kill you all. Okay,
yeah, it's like Jerusalem will be like District 1. It will not District 1. It will be like the capital, basically.
Yeah, it's the capital, and all the districts have to send their representatives to with their animals and shit, or else you will have no rain and no prosperous crops.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm so glad this man was not in my childhood ecclesia.
Yeah, but then here's the other quote that I had from this guy from Australia. Quote, "What sorts of industries will exist in the kingdom? Here's a list of kingdom careers. Potter, stonemason, carpenter, glassblower, blacksmith, tailor, cobbler, builder, baker, farmer, shipwright, chandler," in parentheses, candle maker.
Manitoulin set us up good then.
Brickmaker, shop owner, restaurateur. My personal view is that in the kingdom, people will use mostly pre-electric forms of lighting, olive oil lamps and candles. Wood fires will be used for cooking, unquote. And then I have a second one.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's the other quote. Again, this is just the sections I found about work. Quote, "People will need to work in the kingdom." As paradise, you have to work. As we have seen in the agriculture section of this book, it will be very easy to grow food in the kingdom. But people will still need to work in the field of agriculture, for example, to pick fruit, tread grapes, make wine, grind corn, bake bread, etc. In many third world countries, people live, work, and go to school locally. In many parts of the world, the workday is divided by a siesta period in which people sleep for a few hours in the middle of the day. And then carry on into the evening and finally have dinner from 9 p.m. onwards. And after dinner, drink coffee and talk until midnight and beyond. There's no reason why this way of life should not continue in the kingdom and may even be expanded, unquote.
Oh,
if you make it into the kingdom, you too can live like you're in a third world country.
That's what I'm saying.
You can work for eternity.
This sounds like we're going back to medieval times.
It is.
Nothing about this is
you can be
appealing.
Or a blacksmith.
We could be. It's like, are we actually going back to medieval times?
Lamps. Yes.
And what also doesn't make sense.
Is there even silverware? Who knows?
Is there even silverware? Hello?
Yeah.
Is it going to be...
We have to grind our own corn.
Yeah.
We have to tread grapes with, our feet? Are you kidding me? That's what the technology we're going back to?
This sounds very specific to only certain cultures as well. It's like...
Yes. Oh, yeah. This is definitely a white guy.
This is definitely a white guy. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, so what were medieval times in China or something? Like, why?
It's like there's siestas around the world.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think that's how
I don't think that's how it works.
And he's like, they have coffee. I'm like, okay, sure. They're drinking coffee in this situation, but they're also like glass blowers and cobblers.
Yeah. It's
what? They're staying up till midnight, but they're also baking their own bread when they grind their own flour for it.
The restaurateurs, but they're also awake till midnight.
Is probably the best one.
Yeah,
but they also have to cook by fire. They can't use any electricity. So
production is low. Even though we're supposed to be feeding everybody coming to the temple, it's going to be slow going because we only can bake by fire.
Wait, he missed one of the most important jobs.
What?
Butcher.
Oh. And what about hunter? Wouldn't you think that there would be some hunters? No hunters.
Well, the animals just come to you to be killed when you
need
food.
They're like just willingly.
They're like, hey, just kill me. I know you look hungry.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's fascinating. Yep. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, they missed out in my Sunday school.
Yeah, like I said, my jaw dropped reading this article. I was like, maybe there'll be some interesting quotes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh my God. What?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff. I do like the part where he does confirm that we do fly and that Jesus
Excellent.
will fly. He says angels can obviously fly, so we'll be able to fly, but without wings, which is great to know. So that's probably going to be how the saints get to the temple.
Yep.
Everyone else is walking or like boat and stuff,
Yeah.
which sucks for them because he says there are no cars and no airplanes.
If we are cooking things by fire, then surely there is no more like modern medicine or anything of any kind.
Oh yeah, but you're living to 700 years anyways. He says there's like no pandemics and stuff. Like he specifically throws that out in his book. He's like, yeah, that's definitely just going to go away. I'm like, how did you reach that conclusion?
Right, because everything else is going back to primitive times, but there was a lot of disease and death.
How are we not nutrient deficient? Remember when they discovered scurvy and like they didn't know that it was a nutrient deficiency?
Remember when they started fortifying foods? Yeah.
Remember when they discovered goiters and iodine? Yeah. So that was interesting. I like that he just makes up shit too. Here's where he describes Jerusalem as the new world capital. He says, quote, "A world capital is an entirely new concept. We don't know exactly what it will be like, but I personally imagine there will be an art gallery where people can go to see paintings of Bible scenes painted by inspired artists. I also imagine there being a library where people can go to find out what it was like to live in pre-kingdom times. There will be numerous cafes and squares and shops and colleges for educating people in the ways of God." That's his version of the kingdom and of Jerusalem at this time. Which feels way too advanced to me compared to how primitive and apocalyptic everything else is at this time.
There's like kind of a mismatch of things happening here.
There's these amazing art and art galleries, but also you're living in the mud, walking, sweating, hoping you can find water.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mesh. I love the there will be a library of books about what it was like to live before the kingdom. Like, that is hilarious to me.
I'm actually shocked he put that in there because he has some very gleeful comments about how DVDs, CDs, porn, everything will be destroyed, and by taking down like modern technology, it'll make it easier because they won't have to burn hard copies.
Digital media is just like immediately destroyed, and
he's like, fuck digital media, we're gonna get rid of that. But also I feel like, just imagine, like, most conservative religions hate books in general. They hate that you can experience other people, that you grow empathy for other people who you're supposed to think of as other and evil, worldly, whatever. But also, like, it teaches you about all kinds of things, like relationships, and there might be casual sex in it. And, like, it might teach other religions. You might hear about experiences from all these different types of people who are not what you believe and what you do and how you live. And so I was like, you have enough books for a library?
Yeah.
How?
Who's writing these?
That are appropriate? Yeah.
Exactly. By inspired artists, too. That is hysterical.
They're inspired by God. Yeah.
Oh.
I don't want to be a bone burier.
I don't either.
I do think there's a heavy emphasis on farmers. Even they believe Armageddon, like the meaning of it is like dividing wheat or something like that. And in Leviticus, they use a quote that's talking about like having prosperous crops and lots of fruit, and you don't have to worry about like wild animals. And so a lot of stuff, as I've been kind of joking about throughout, definitely is like very pro-farmer propaganda. But I feel like that makes sense if this entire fever dream was cooked up by a bunch of farmers in the olden days.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was like these people out in the sticks who were like living off the land, who were God's people. And up until the Industrial Revolution, to be honest, pretty much all societies, the majority of society was farmers, because that was the most important thing, was having food for your population. And it was only a more recent generational thing, the last few generations, where now there's other careers. And farmers are the smallest group, and it's mass scale farming, but it's much smaller people doing it. So I feel like once we passed the Industrial Revolution, I think most of the kingdom lost its appeal to pretty much everybody. Because they're like, we're not farmers. We don't care about prosperous crops anymore and like good rain.
Well, and there's a way to mass farm animals even now. So like, why do we need shepherds?
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, shepherd wasn't on the list.
Oh, right.
Okay. So butcher, shepherd, hunter. He was not thinking about meat.
No.
But yes, that was just one little comment I've kind of thought about, was like, why does so much of this relate to the farming and or things that a farmer would have had like on his wish list, where he's like, I really wish we had good rain. I really wish my like grapes didn't get eaten by bugs so I could have tons of wine. You know, I wish I didn't have to rent my house from that landlord. And God's like, in the future, you can have it all. Whereas I think if you asked like a modern person what they wanted, like in a future ideal world, that stuff wouldn't really be on their list that much.
It's true.
Like, at least not that way.
It makes it hard to sell the kingdom, like we were saying, to modern people, because you got to get through the hurdle of, oh, by the way, everything you know is going to have to be destroyed first for you to then desire to be a farmer. Like,
and you have to get rid of all modern conveniences that for most of us who are listening, who probably have some sort of technology in order to hear me and have internet to access this around the world, you would have to give all of that up, all of your comforts, conveniences, connection, all of that stuff. So you have to give something up, in fact, to get it, which is not the best way to have an incentive.
It's quite a lot different than heaven, where like heaven is so vague, where it's like, it's kind of your heaven. Like,
and it's, you know, it's going to be good.
Yeah, no matter what, it's supposed to be good. Whereas here, it's like multi-step process. No, you don't get to pick your...
God picked and made the rules, and it's an authoritarian thing. So you don't get to say, no, if you don't go to Jerusalem, you will not get rain, and you will have famine, and you will die.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
that doesn't sound at all like heaven.
No, that doesn't sound like a reward.
Your reward is just, eventually you will not die, depending on when you were born, too, because it's a gamble of whether or not you'll even be at one judgment or the other. One thing that he said that made me laugh was that they could act out Daniel in the lion's den with real lions. That made me laugh.
That is top of the list priority for me.
Major perk. He said they will have music in the kingdom, but it will have to give glory to God. Which,
of course,
again, I think all the heathen music will get burned or landfilled or whatever. So here's one of my questions for you that I had not shown you before.
Okay.
It's a yes or no question.
Okay.
There's no correct answer. In the Millennium, does Jesus have a TikTok account? Before the internet goes down.
Before the internet
he comes in. He comes to Earth.
Yeah.
He's got to get his message out to the masses. He's got to convince them to join the kingdom. Does he use one of the most popular apps of the day?
I would say if he is serious about getting his message out as fast as possible.
The smart thing.
I would say the smart thing genuinely would be yes.
The little TikTok dance.
Exactly. And I mean, with the supernatural abilities he has, anything is possible. He could delete every other piece of content on the whole app and just replace it with only...
Also, that's very authoritarian. I can definitely see him doing that, actually. He'll be like, oh, that's what you're going to see when you open it.
Exactly. TikTok is Jesus channel live streaming only. Yeah. Jesus Talk.
Jesus Talk.
Yeah, Jesus live stream 24/7 live stream.
Whoa. That would be nuts.
That would be
really
nuts.
Yeah.
It'd be effective.
Until the blackouts.
Yeah, until the blackouts. Yeah. You gotta use the technology while it's here.
Yeah. I have one question. What happens to all the technology brothers? Like, you know, there's at every meeting, there's like one brother who's the technology one who's like got the recording equipment and setting everything up. That was not on the list of industries in the kingdom and job options and career options. So I don't know what they're going to do.
Who knows? If if he's a saint at this point, then hopefully he has more enlightened things to worry about. Yeah, he'd have to
or
be
a
a ruler, a priest. Yeah.
But there's no technology. No internet, apparently.
No.
So you're not going to be able to GPS your way to Jerusalem. You're going to have to figure it out yourself.
Yeah, by using the stars or something. Maps.
Yeah, you got to get out all your fancy shipwright tools. That's another career path. You can guide people to and from Jerusalem by boat, I guess.
Be a guide. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another one. That one's interesting. Okay. So there's another source of income for the people, besides having to work and, selling your fruit and whatever. There's also looting.
Oh, okay. What?
Yeah, Zechariah 14:14, girl. It describes them collecting silver, gold, and clothing, which again, I feel like it's dated. I'm not stealing anybody's polyester shit.
Yeah,
you know?
no way.
I feel like that had to have been like something back in the day where like you had only a few sets of clothing that you constantly wore and you had like good clothing for Sunday. Like, okay, then I could understand you stealing like quality linens and stuff and like cottons and woven and decorated stuff. But
and who has silver and gold?
Once you bury those bones, you're gonna go steal their shit too.
That's
so
crazy.
you need silver and gold and shekels and whatever.
It does track. There's so much looting in the Bible. There's so much of like raiding and looting other people's goods, you know?
Yeah. So we're gonna have a new currency. Bone buriers are gonna kick off our economy, as it turns out. And then there's the shop owners, but I kid you not, he put this line in here, quote, "In the kingdom, shoppers will not get ripped off."
That's so funny.
I was worried about that one.
I
was like, should I go? Will I get ripped off?
What a relief.
Mm-hmm.
That is so funny.
Yeah. One verse that I thought was really weird was in the Psalms. It talks about how God will save the poor, but I feel like he's just going to make them farmers and be like, you have to work.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Like, that's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah. There's no relief. It's not like a relief for the poor. Like,
no. So the next section I want to talk about is just immortality.
Sure.
But basically it says we will have no suffering, no disease, no disability. We are now eternal. Do we want immortality?
Yes. Is that something we want?
Honestly, every time I think about this, I just think about vampires because I'm like, oh, we don't need to sleep anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like day vampires that can go out in the sun. That's how I'm picturing being an immortal, to be honest.
Well, it says we will be like the angels, which means no more male or female.
So we're non-binary.
We're non-binary creatures that will no longer sleep or eat.
Yes. Or don't have to.
Yeah, we do not have
to. Digest
to.
a system if you want to.
Okay.
I guess.
Okay.
I think.
But no suffering. So that's actually good because then you can eat whatever you want and you won't suffer the consequences.
I don't have celiac disease anymore. I can't eat gluten again.
Yeah.
But the food's going to suck. You know
that's true.
Suck.
There is not going to be good restaurants or good restaurants in this temple area.
He uses restaurants and cafes a little too freely.
Yeah. Coffee, wine, and meat. Yeah, but so it's like we are going to be as the angels.
Yep.
Not eating or option to sleep or eat, not needing to, teleporting everywhere, reading
those
minds.
Priests are supposed to be working like 24/7
exactly.
At that temple, so
it's a good thing we don't need to eat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some of us are going to be working 24/7.
That's what an ideal life. Wow.
Exactly.
Can't wait to give up my life for that.
Without the ability to have a wide range of human emotion, like no more.
Yeah, you can't care
suffering.
About
yeah,
it.
You can't really care. That it's so vague, and this is one of the biggest things that started really scaring me when I was like a young adult. I would say is I was like, I could get past a lot of the kingdom stuff and a lot of like what our roles would be, and the idea that God will be all in all and the world will be filled with righteousness. Like, okay, I was like, I can get on board with that. That doesn't sound bad, like even like I'm sure talking to people today, since COVID especially, people I don't think nowadays would be shocked if Jesus did come back. You know what I'm saying? Like, with people with UFOs and stuff, like you'd be like, oh, would you be surprised?
Possible.
Anything is possible now. And the idea that like, you know what? At this point, maybe even a new world leader coming in, maybe even people can get behind that. But like, what is the end goal, right? For all of us to be immortal. Yeah. And these kind of like, what does it mean? Are we just a hive mind? We're all these like interdimensional, supernatural kind of beings that are God's like private soldiers.
Minds,
yeah, who can read minds.
Fly, can't die. Like,
can't die.
Just all of those things alone change dramatically our experience compared to being human, which is all we know.
Right. And the funny thing too is you're taught to not question it and just kind of believe and have faith, have blind faith that God, it will all be fine. Just don't worry, it'll all be fine.
This is what God wants, so it's what you should want.
It'll
don't
all
question
be okay.
it, children.
Yeah.
God will take care of us, like He always has. Forget about that flood. Forget about the wars.
Yeah.
God loves you.
So whatever state, like, I guess that is what is most terrifying and always has been to me is this idea
what
that,
does it mean?
like, what does it mean? And I know there's like debate about is that like free will might be gone at that point.
Yes.
If there's not even an option to make quote unquote bad decisions, there is no more free will, because we will all have been changed to be these kind of angel beings that God wants and that is useful to him. No more questioning, no more rebelling, I'm assuming either. Like there's not really...
I mean, except for the trick one where he gets rid of the rebellion.
Yes, he's allowed. Only Jesus is allowed, the final trickster.
Yeah, I feel like throughout this whole episode, we keep coming up with control and coercion with this, where mortals are being coerced onto this path. Yeah. And into this kingdom, and if they can't hack it, basically, if their sacrifice is rejected... like it's not going to be good. And then there's going to be a second judgment too, so again lots of people are going to be like, you didn't make it, you didn't make it. And so it's comply or die.
Totally. And from where I'm standing, what being changed to be like the angel sounds like is being turned into someone who no longer has the option to not comply, or no longer has the option to question things or have true free will,
or individuality.
Really. That scares me. Like, that genuinely scares me. The idea of being this kind of hive mind thing with God. Kind of just doing his bidding 24/7. Like, from a spiritual perspective, it sounds very it's very ungrounding feeling. It's like, it's a very kind of like, ooh, woo, like up in the air kind of like transcendent kind of feeling when I think about that, like being made like an angel. And I guess more so in the eternity portion too, because in the millennia we're going to be, according to Christadelphians, interacting a lot with humans and doing a lot of things to accommodate them and teach them and so on and so forth. But in the eternity phase,
we got that next stage.
we have already signed up for eternity. So what is like, you got to tell me more.
You only have a little tiny bit of structure. And again, a lot of this is extrapolations that he's kind of making up, at least with this thing, that you can obviously tell for that 1,000 years. But then it just drops off after the 1,000 years. It's like, you'll find out what happens next.
And 1,000 years is nothing. When you're talking about like for the rest of time as you know
eternity.
For the rest of eternity, like what are...
nothing.
Yeah, so I never could get on board with just accepting that I know nothing and that you have to agree to it and you have to have faith
you have to
blindly
agree before you know.
Yes. Yeah. And my humanity, like, to make that choice now, apparently being incapable of understanding, you know, I will only be able to understand once I've been made immortal. So it's like, that sounds like a trick.
That sounds very tricky.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Greek myth again.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
It's like, like you got tricked by God.
Yeah.
I feel like so much of this gets really philosophical for me. I know you lean towards the spiritual with that you kept talking about. But for me, I'm like, what does it mean to be human? Because like when you think about like what brings you joy day to day, what brings meaning to your life, what gives you purpose. I mean, so many people will talk about relationships. So many people will talk about like what they give to the world, things that they contribute. You know, all of these things that are so interconnected that cause such a deep emotional experience for us. And so it's crazy how in this scenario, it strips all of that away. Yeah. And so it's hard for me to even think about being human without that. I feel like in the end, you become a sociopath where you only think about yourself. It has to be completely individualistic and or focused only on God if you're thinking of anyone else, because you're basically an indentured servant for the rest of eternity, it sounds like, because you have to do what he wants. It's all about his goal for the planet, his goal for humankind, all of that kind of stuff. So it's just, for me, I can't get into it because I'm like, you can't take away my humanity and tell me I'm going to be happy. You can't take away, you know, the people I love, the animals I love, the places I love. You know, you're destroying our home and like, you know, basically like, it sounds like nuking the world. You're destroying our families, tearing them apart, even just, you know, all of this kind of stuff. There's just so many layers of misery that are kind of inflicted on you. And then they're like, but we'll just make it so you don't care. Exactly. Like, that's the trade-off, is like, you just won't be that. And like, but that means I'm not me. And so you get into like this identity crisis. And so again, like, it gets very philosophical for me. Like, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be you? And And so it feels like I wouldn't be in the kingdom, even if I elected to be like, yeah, I'll be eternal and worship God. Sure, no problem. Would it be Zinnia? Would it be who I am with my values and my beliefs and my memories and like all of that kind of stuff that make me me as opposed to someone else?
Yeah, exactly.
It basically means it's kind of more like making robots. Like we're all supposed to be the same, believe the same thing. We have the same abilities. Like, what's to say that God wants me to do something compared to you in this eternity? Like, what's the difference? We're all the same.
Yeah, that's why I find it funny, too, that growing up, Christadelphians put so much emphasis on this. What are you doing to prepare for your role in the kingdom? And it's like,
what's my role?
What
we
is
have,
my
like, 2 jobs?
What is my role? And what do I even matter at that point? Like, I'm just kind of part of this. God is in all of us, and his presence is in all of us. He's changed all of us to have these like super hyper personal relationship with him, like the angels do. What does my personality matter at that point? Like, what is it? It's not in use. It's
I agree. And does it even matter when he already has had multiple judgments where he's killed so many people? Like, I don't think he would miss one more. We'll just say that. Like, he has no problem killing the majority of humanity.
Yeah, he can raise up stones. Or he can raise up people from stones. Like, the verse was quoted to me all the time. Like, he doesn't need you. You know, God can raise up from stones people that will obey him. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. So, it just, it's does not make sense to me. The immortality thing actually kind of sucks. And
it does.
It seems like this is a very, very, very elaborate and convoluted way of saying, I'm afraid of death. I'm going to invent a belief system that makes it so that no one dies.
Exactly. You know what's funny, too, that you say that? Speaking of everybody having their own vision of the kingdom, what I remember a lot growing up was a lot of people older than me kind of getting super emotional when talking about when Jesus returns, he's going to send their dead parents to knock on the door.
That was referenced.
Yeah, and I remember in England, too, hearing that all the time. And, like, people would be in tears, like, talking about how, about seeing their dead parents knock on their door. And to them, that is their vision of,
that
like...
would give me a heart attack.
Can you imagine? Seriously.
What
like,
the fuck?
That's, like... That's almost, like, as far as it goes for me, like...
It does feel like that's the draw for a lot of them well, especially with, they don't believe there's anything after death. They have no belief in soul. They were literally called no soulless historically.
Yeah.
And so it's like they kind of created this very complicated, high demand alternative to heaven.
Yeah.
But it's basically saying, okay, you won't have to die and you'll be able to see your loved ones.
Yeah.
But there's like this list of conditions. There's thousands of years of waiting and effort and all of this work. They have to have jobs even after they die. They have to work again.
Yeah.
I was like, this is terrible. But they're like, but then I get to see my loved ones.
Right.
Like, oh, okay.
But at the end of the day, you won't even have been sad. Like, you won't even be capable about feeling suffering.
That's
for
the thing.
their,
you
like...
miss... Yeah, your dead relatives.
Because you can't suffer. There will be no suffering. So you think about your dead relatives, you're not going to be suffering about them being dead. Or,
you're sad now, but you'll never miss them.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, if I was to ask Christadelphians around me, like, so you do understand, like, in the kingdom, we're all going to be like angels, and so basically we won't be humans. I remember saying that a couple years ago when I was really, like, getting into debate with people about angels and stuff. And
it's completely valid. Yeah. This is probably a better space to throw that out there. But you're not wrong.
I like, back when I was really getting agitated about it, and people would be like, no, nowhere does it say that we won't be human anymore. Like, people would deny this, like, to my face.
Then?
Like, exactly. So are you saying angels...
We're going to be like the angels, then we're like
and they would be like...
We're not like humans. They are two different things.
And their answer to me would be like, well, no, it's going to be more like back how humans were in the Garden of Eden. Like, very naive. And
that's
like...
not what the Bible
that's not what it says either. So it's like, I feel like Christadelphians... Oh, and also... I think they make up shit, and they don't think hard enough about shit. Because...
They
won't let them
that hard. Yeah, the cognitive dissonance kicks in to find an excuse.
Yeah, I've even met a couple people here in BC when I just moved recently from Ontario, who I was talking to them about this. This is before I officially disfellowshipped myself, and I was talking to them about, like, my biggest kind of, like, again, back when I was very high, like, amped up about this stuff.
Yeah,
and,
you were
like,
willing to say.
I was willing to say anything, and, like, I'm whatever. They didn't even know anything about this. They had
They just didn't even think about
They
it?
didn't, they had never been taught even about, like, they knew, like, the word Armageddon, but they had never even been taught, like, anything beyond.
Well, this is going to be a crash course for them.
So I remember saying, like, oh, I have big issue with, like, you know, being changed to be immortal. And they're like, oh, well, I was never taught that. I just focus on the here and now and the, like, the like pleasing.
That's so not Christadelphian.
Right. It's very like, oh, well, we'll worry about that when the time comes. And, like, God will just take care of everything for us. Like,
wow, those kids must be so much less traumatized.
Exactly. And I think those are the Christadelphians that are, quote unquote, thriving these days. You know, like the ones who don't think too much or who just don't know and are just kind of living more like, I would say, typical Christians. Because there's a lot of Christadelphians out here that seem to be thriving, and I'm like, have you guys ever thought about Armageddon?
And then you're like, oh, that's why.
That is why.
Oh.
I genuinely think
weird.
that a lot of people, again, it's conditioned in us to not ask these questions. They've either just never thought about it, or it doesn't. Maybe it's scary, but like it doesn't bother them because in their mind, you know, God will make sure we're all taken care of. Like, God will make sure everything is fine for us. God loves me. Yeah. Exactly. That's as far as it goes for them, I feel like. And they'll get to see their dead relatives.
Bonus. The only other thing I wanted to throw out there with the angels thing is, for our listeners, Google biblical descriptions of angels. Yeah. Because there's a lot of eyes and wheels. Mm-hmm. And I will not sign up for that shit. I think we all imagine we're going to look human and be humans who just don't die. But if we're going to be like the angels, that is a completely separate matter, and it's horrifying. Yeah. Like, read the biblical descriptions of angels. I had sent you a link. I don't know if you saw. It had like pictures, and I was like, Chloe, we need to talk about this.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, this thing's terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't want to look like that.
It just goes back into the supernatural thing. It's like, I don't want to be turned into like an undisclosed supernatural creature. Please.
The one had like 4 heads, like a bird head and a lion head and a human face. And it was like, oh my God, no. Like, again,
no.
That's...
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Again, that's what makes me think about shapeshifters. Yeah, exactly.
I would run.
Well, remember all the verses about people saying, are the angels' first words to people being, be not afraid? It's because most people were afraid of angels when they appeared to them. They were frightening. Yeah. It doesn't ever, I don't think it says why, besides maybe just like spooking them.
Not really.
But
except something was off about that. Yeah. Again, I feel like it's like, I keep thinking of like vampires where you're like, oh, like, you're human.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, Uncanny Valley-ish.
Are you? But you're picking up on something. You're like, I'm scared. Why am I scared? What am I picking up here?
Exactly.
Danger.
Yeah. Danger, for real.
Talking about angels could be a whole other subject. We don't have the time for it. We're going to keep moving. We don't know where they came from, what they do, what's going to happen with them. They're hardly involved, let's be honest. We don't know what's going on. Also, if God already has angels, why does he even need us? Sounds like a trap.
Right.
Again. Oh, one of these quotes that I found from him that just made me laugh, that I just found in my notes. Let me just read it. I can't. Stephen Hughes, you made me laugh. Quote, the saints will be able to communicate with each other at any distance. They will be able to send weather reports to each other.
Why is he so concerned with the weather? This is so funny.
What we're using our abilities for.
Oh, wow. Weather forecast. This is great. You know what? This is great news.
But if we're immortal, we can't just know the weather forecast.
Yeah,
like, no, that's not part of our like skill set to be like, oh, I see clouds coming. I have supernatural abilities to know rain is on its way. Like,
that kind of sucks. The implications of that.
Yeah, those people traveling by ship. Like, I gotta warn them. There's a storm.
That is so funny.
Yeah, that one it was so random. I saw it and I was like, okay, we can communicate telepathically, but what we're communicating is the weather. We're just chatting about the weather. Yeah,
it's very, very like matter of fact kind of things that we're going to be in this very supernatural world we're living in. It's going to be very matter of fact.
Yeah, there's so many like mundane things that he really focuses on. Whereas like the big questions, he's like, we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah. Oh, you'll actually like this one because Stephen Hughes talked about free will. Oh. Here's what he had to say. Quote, free will is an essential condition for the development of godly characters. So at the end of the millennium, there will be a final global test of free will. This period is described in the verses above. At the end, so Revelation somewhere, at the end of the 1,000 years, the restraint will be removed for a short period. This will determine the true worshipers of God and those who are just doing it because they have to, unquote.
Wow, he's really thought about everything.
And it sounds like free will not exist once everyone's
yeah,
immortal.
okay.
Because he says this is a final test of free will.
Yeah, before it's just gone.
Which, that's what I would say the second half of that thought seems to be.
It's true. Yeah, okay.
But I also thought it was interesting that he's saying, again, this is like the trickery part, where he's like, we're going to remove the restraint and see who's actually following God and who was just being coerced into following God.
It's a very, like he's thinking very negatively about, there's no, like, kind of goodwill.
About, like, the humans?
Yeah, there's
he's
no,
like, they're all evil.
Yeah,
we're all sinful.
It makes sense, but, like, you'd think at this point you'd be loving and giving people a benefit of the doubt and, like, being merciful. No, he's thinking very, like we're gonna trick them, we're gonna see who's really evil. Like, it's very negative.
Yeah, get
and,
rid
like,
of those ones.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This next section, we have to talk about. It came up slightly earlier, but we didn't get into it yet. In the Bible, it says there will be neither male nor female.
Yep.
So the future kingdom and eternity will be gender neutral. So one thing that makes me think of is that the kingdom and the future that we're all supposedly working towards, that we're supposedly picturing every day, actually rewrites everything that we were taught about, like these patriarchal values that Christadelphians follow. Yeah. So for women, be a wife and mother. You can't have these preaching roles. You can't pray at the podium. In traditional ecclesias, there's a few that are progressive who I've never experienced. We've also heard in some episodes about how some brothers would tell women that their education doesn't really matter, or they can't teach except for like young children. They should stay in the home and not work, things like that. But in the kingdom, there's no marriage, there's no sex, there's no gender. So how do you have a gender hierarchy and a patriarchy if we're all non-binary? So, and also, like, patriarchy shouldn't even exist because men won't exist after the second judgment. Yeah. So how is it that Christadelphians are saying they're preparing for the kingdom when they're creating a patriarchy and the kingdom is non-binary?
Right.
Like,
I know.
What are we doing here?
When I read that in your notes, I was like, that is... I never thought about that way.
I figured something out.
Yeah,
no one thought about that one.
Yeah, I was like, it's true. Like, all this talk, I don't know, as a kid about, like, preparing for your role. And it's like, well, all you're teaching me to do here and now is be a wife and have kids.
Yes.
So how is
or
that...
Or a Sunday school teacher.
Or a Sunday school teacher, which I tried and failed at. Like,
I hated that.
I got, like, so... And it was off topic, but I got, like, very rejected from my ecclesia from teaching Sunday school.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because the teachers were all the parents of the kids, and they wanted their kids to learn a very specific way, right? Anyways.
Okay, that's lame. I actually hate that. Okay.
Yeah, off topic, but it is exactly. It's like, so after what, like playing the piano, having kids, and setting the table, the memorial table.
And now they're like, you need to be a ruler and a priest.
And now it's like,
are you ready?
Yeah, exactly. Be a ruler and a priest. It's like, well, okay, y'all didn't set me up for that. Like,
why are you a stumbling block for me, brothers?
Exactly.
What the hell?
Yeah.
You were supposed to be helping me get to the kingdom. Yeah. Instead, you're putting obstacles in my way, making me worry about head coverings.
Exactly.
Has head coverings come up in this podcast yet?
Yeah.
No, it has not come up in this episode yet.
Yep. Exactly. It really does make no sense. I think there's too much focus on the suppression of women, making sure that women are being quiet and doing their thing properly and having as many kids as possible and filling the earth. And
keep them busy.
Blah, blah. Keep them busy with all the unpaid labor they do in the ecclesia.
Yep.
And
the home.
And you know what? But don't worry. In the future, they'll have more to do. Like, but that's not for now. That's for the future. Like, make sure you know your role now. You know, like,
you can't be a ruler or priest now.
Yeah,
because in the Bible, it never says, "Oh, the men will be rulers and priests." It says the saints, and that is both men and women, or if I'm not, then why the fuck am I going to an ecclesia on a Sunday if
Yeah.
I'm not going to be in the kingdom?
Exactly.
That's the whole point, right?
So it's like you're treating me.
Doctrine.
Yeah, it's like, oh, so you're going to treat me well eventually one day in the kingdom when we're both equal in your eyes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
God, Jesus has to return in order
Yes.
to get rid of patriarchy.
Yeah.
But the Christadelphians
Yeah.
will happily keep patriarchy around until
Yeah.
he comes.
It's
is
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
getting.
it's useful for control.
So, yeah, I think that's terrible. Christadelphian husbands are not setting their wives up for success in
Yeah.
the kingdom. They should be training them to be priests because that will be their future role. So, it just broke my brain when I thought about that.
Yeah.
I had to share it. I did find a quote from Stephen Hughes to share in this section.
Yes.
What do you think do you have any guesses about what's coming?
He's honestly so unhinged. I don't know at this point what direction this could go in. It could go anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, just tell me. I have no idea.
Okay. Quote, "It is my view that mothers will not go out to work in the kingdom.
Oh.
Mothers will stay at home looking after their children. And when the children no longer need looking after or have left home, will be engaged in home craft style activities and visiting people," unquote.
No. Not more of this.
Yeah.
More of this?
Patriarchy
More of the same?
continues in the kingdom.
Okay,
Yes.
you're telling
Raise your children.
me.
I guess this is the millennium.
This
I'll
has
say.
to be millennium. Yeah.
It has to be millennium.
So, okay. Oh my goodness. Women are going to be doing arts and crafts and visiting people.
Yeah, like it feels like Victorian era.
It totally feels
crazy is
Victorian. Yes.
This guy references like DVDs and like
Yeah.
iPods and
Yeah.
shit. So this is not written and by like Robert Roberts.
Right.
I'd be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
like that's his reality. No, he's like broadcasting, like coming out with this old fashioned view because that was like life for.
Yeah.
I would say like upper class white people in the
Yeah, it reminds me of Pride and Prejudice. Yeah.
Yeah, and like do their hobbies, but they didn't have to earn income at the time. They were kind of supported by a rich husband.
Yeah.
But they had like calling cards and would go like visit each other and shit. And so like that was their life, was like socializing, gossiping,
Yes.
and like home things like, oh, I'll sew a new dress for my child.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we're going to go back to that, actually.
Yeah.
Like, mothers should be at home. They should be in the home.
Oh.
Taking care of the kids. Although he didn't say take care of the husband, so at least
Yeah,
they're
that's
not
true.
deadbeats
Yeah.
in this scenario,
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean,
So
they better
that's
be out there
good.
building me a home. They better be out there building a beautiful home.
They need to be working all day except for when they take siesta.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
going to be up till midnight,
Yeah.
apparently working. They're
Yeah.
going to be up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah.
If dawn exists, I
Yeah.
don't know. There's no darkness, so hard to say.
Yeah, I also like how alcohol is involved in here. Like, we're going to be producing a lot of
there's gonna be
wine.
wine.
So there's going to be a lot of
Yeah, there's
drinking,
gonna be
I'm
wine.
assuming.
Presumably, like, also, like, whiskey. I assume
Yeah.
there's a lot of grain
Yeah.
alcohols with
Sure.
the Agricultural Society. Cider, I imagine?
Yeah,
Apples
yeah,
are still
I
around?
would say so. Unless there's no more seasonal rotation, like you said. And
That's the thing. Yeah, I'm a little worried about,
I'm worried about
how that
apples.
would work with,
Yeah.
like, and even, like, you hear about, like, climate change stuff with, like, coffee, bananas.
Exactly,
There's a few
yeah.
different ones that they're like, we might want to avert catastrophe.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. Yeah. So that's my comments on sexism in the kingdom and
Okay.
the millennium and the Christadelphian plan here. And then the last section I really have is talking about God.
Okay.
Because I'll be honest, reading through and researching this, he feels like an abusive ex-boyfriend, where he's just like kind of treats humans terribly a lot.
Yeah.
And then destroyed most of us. I mean, think of like Sodom and Gomorrah, think of the flood, think of the slavery part of the Israelite story, thinking about Armageddon and Armageddon 2. He's telling me I need to basically sell my humanity in exchange for immortality.
Yeah.
But he has a habit of killing us. So I'm a little concerned about committing my eternity to this guy. He's killed his chosen people before. You know, I'm seeing a pattern here. So I am a little concerned about God. He seems like not a great guy.
Yeah.
And he does seem to be a guy, very much.
Very much so.
With the whole patriarchy thing.
Yeah.
And then even when I think about this whole storyline, it feels like it was made by a farmer back in the olden days before the Industrial Revolution. Like I said, the values, the logistics, all of this stuff. It sounds Like it was pieced together by men
Mm-hmm.
over hundreds of years during a very different type of society
Yeah.
structure and culture. I feel like if there was a plan made by an omnipotent, everlasting, all-knowing God who is the same forevermore, I forget the verse, but like he's always the same, whatever. I feel like it would be a little more cohesive. I feel like it would be really detailed. I think he would have a lot of time to come up with really good details, being eternal and all that. I think it would be a little more focused on spiritual things, because I thought this is like a religion. It's like it's spiritual, you would think, primarily, but this is very much like focused on human logistics and human concerns. It seems a little preoccupied. Like I would say, like it seems like what humans think about and worry about, and not like a purpose for the galaxy of like, oh, this is this huge plan created by God. I was like, this feels very much created by farmers. And like multiple different farmers who had to try to piece this together and make it cohesive, because it's not.
I feel like it goes back to Christadelphian's definition of God. Like, who is God? I feel like a lot of other Christian denominations really focus on this unconditionally loving, benevolent kind of picture of God, where he's like a father figure and he's like a mother hen, and there's a lot of this like love and goodwill towards humans,
and
but
like trust.
But Christadelphians, they really, with the whole mercy and truth thing, they almost like are offended at that idea of God being all loving. They're offended at the like because unconditional love. No, God is not unconditionally loving. So
they like conditions. They're used to conditional.
Very used to conditional. So this whole idea of God filling the whole earth and we're all going to be involved in God's plan. It's like, well, my definition of love is not the same as Christadelphian's definition of love, and God is love. It is abuse.
God is abusive.
Exactly. And when you, that is what it ties back down to me. It's like, you have to really buy into this whole thing. Like, according to Christadelphian, you don't understand what real love is, because what the world has told you, what Christians tell you that God is love. No, he's only loving towards those who meet his conditions and who obey. Jeez. So like in the future, in this kingdom, it's like, yeah, God's going to be all loving and the earth is going to be all great and whatever, but it's not this like unconditional utopia heaven thing that people imagine. Like,
I mean, even these sacrifices and stuff.
Exactly.
Even when you get past the first Judgment Day, there's still these conditions that have to be met. You have to go to Jerusalem. You have to do this blood sacrifice. You have to do this, and this. This is not an all-loving God who wants all these people to be there.
And at the end of the day, you're signing up, like you said, for your humanity to be taken away from you. And that, and at that point, you will have no more choice. You won't have free will.
That's the final free will.
That's the final free will will be
Yeah.
gone. There will be no more opportunity to even live as a human would. So, like, it's all very conditional, and your reward is that you will not be tempted to disobey again. That's essentially your reward.
That's your reward.
So it's like,
is being obedient forever.
It's being obedient forever. So that, to me, once I started thinking about, like, truly what love means to me, what does that mean about God being benevolent? Christadelphians, in my area at least, in Brantford, would like almost bristle at that idea of God being this like benevolent. Like, somebody even asked me, like, is that word is benevolent? Is God even ever described as benevolent? I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's a verse about God having love towards the whole world, but I don't know. Maybe that doesn't mean benevolent.
Only because he gave Jesus as
right.
a blood
Only
sacrifice.
because
that was when it was love.
Very
was blood.
Mm-hmm. He sacrificed so much, but it just like that's what really like was the nail in the coffin, for me, of like not being on board with this, because it's all conditional and it all boils down to your reward being not being human and not having a choice but to obey forever.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound loving to me.
When you really think about it,
that's
really
not
about it.
That's not love. Like it's
not a reward either.
That's not a reward. That's just kind of like taking away a non-existent struggle, you know, like you're creating a struggle and creating a problem that God only has the solution to, which is sin. Like sin in the flesh being the big struggle here. It's like, well, that's not a struggle unless you were taught that that's a struggle.
Yeah, and so, God made the fucking problem in the first place.
Exactly. So,
he could have made Adam and Eve not sin and just skipped that whole 7,000 year plan and just jumped right into making the robots that he wants to worship him.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have to destroy the world multiple times. You could just create the kingdom
Yeah.
then. Like, what's crazy is that God had in this, whole theology and whatever, he has the control. He has all the cards. He has all the chips. And supposedly he is so creative that he designed everything in nature. Every leaf you've ever seen, every molecule, every person is unique with their own unique face and whatever, except for twins, I guess. But he made history, humanity. He watched all of it. He was there. He made all the languages of the world. Like, that is, if that was all truly from one source, that is incredible. That is an incredible amount of diversity and creativity and everything. And this is the fucking best he came up with for an end goal.
End goal.
Just be like,
everything's the same.
You'll get to live forever and not die. Yeah. And then there's nothing after. Like, this is the most creative being in the universe. Yeah. And he can't give me a chapter about what happens, a book about what happens after Revelation. Yeah,
that's where I kept ending up too, where I was like, one of the big unraveling pieces of Christadelphia for me was that is like there's not enough, and that is even too crazy.
Not enough to believe.
There's not enough to even believe, and you're asking me to not only have faith and believe blindly, but I'm supposed to come up with my own vision. Like, you're telling me God was not capable of giving me the vision of what it's actually going to be. It's up to me. This sounds insane.
He made sure to get this Bible to you so that you could figure it out. Yeah. Like, he won't give you enough for you to actually believe it's worth it.
Exactly. I remember, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but when I was a kid, there's a verse, maybe it came from the verse about where there is no vision, the people perish, but my parents and in my family, it was always a thing. When you go to sleep at night, they'd be tucking us in, and in the bedtime prayers, it would be like, and please give Chloe a vision of the kingdom, or please give our kids visions of the kingdom. Always pray that you're having visions of the kingdom.
Oh, I never had that.
Yeah, I had that a lot growing up, and it.
But for anyone who is curious, we did do a hymn and a prayer together every night.
Right?
So
really?
We still had the religious bedtime. We had to sing we would get the hymn book and
from the green hymn book.
It was black when I was little. Okay, and then the green one later on. But me and my sister would alternate who got to choose the song that's the hymn for the night and who had to say the prayer.
That's intense, man. That's crazy.
Singing a hymn in bed at 8 p.m. with your parent. Yep, wow. Just quietly singing. Yep. I really know those hymns.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My parents used to sing us.
Son of God, our Savior.
Yep. For me, it was The Lord's Our Shepherd. That was the go-to bedtime hymn for us.
Teach me thy ways.
Teach me thy ways, O Lord.
Classic.
Teach me thy ways.
Teach me thy ways.
Yeah.
When I am sad at heart, teach me thy ways.
It was so much on me to figure out my vision of the kingdom, but it was the more I thought about it, the more I didn't like what I saw, the more I didn't like it. So I'm
the more blank space I saw where I can't picture it. There's nothing about hanging out with a lion that really tempts me.
No,
now.
Nothing about this tempts me.
I love my own life more. And even when I was miserable as a kid, I was still I would still rather fall in love. I would still rather travel. I would still rather grow up and experience the world and grow and evolve, which I have. People who knew me as a kid are probably wow, you're kind of different on the podcast. Yeah, I've grown and evolved and become a new person from my experiences, which would shut off if you become eternal and everyone basically freezes.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't grow and change.
No, you're just kind of this eternal
humanity.
There's so many verses about God is never changing. God does not change, and you will be like God at that point. You'll be like the angels. They never change.
I don't
want that. All it did, my visions were filled with existential dread, basically, is what what ended up happening.
No,
I was no, this is too much. This is too much for me to digest and come up with a tempting image for me to want. And I didn't even like Bible schools as a kid. People would be like, you see this? This is what the kingdom's going to be like. No, no worldly influence. Yeah, it'll be you're at Manitoulin all the time. What?
Oh God.
No, I don't want that ever. That wasn't even tempting to me as a kid. Yeah, certainly not as an adult. No. So
no.
Yeah,
it's where so much of my trauma was from.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know if God really wanted as many people to be saved as possible. You would think that there would be even just a little more direction, a little more something in the verses to pull out of, to find, like, make it hidden, whatever. Make it for, like, the kings to search out. Like, make it some, like,
that's
thing.
Bullshit.
It's so bullshit. But, like, if even that, like, give me something more, you know?
Yes.
Like,
if there was entire books about visions of the kingdom that were compelling and visual, I mean, we've got fucking Song of Solomon in there talking about, like, sexy time with his bride.
Yeah.
You can fit that in the Bible, but you can't give me an entire book with, like, 50 chapters about the kingdom.
Yeah.
That's on you that I don't believe.
And
because I'm reading about someone's bosom when I should be reading about, like, hey, this is the part where you have to wade through the water. There's a good reason why you have to randomly wade through this water to get to the temple. I would love to know. Tell me. And put it in the Bible then if you want me to know the answer.
Yeah, do not tell me. I don't know if you heard this growing up too. This is, first of all, not scientifically true. But growing up,
tell me.
I heard all the time that in the kingdom, we'll be able to use 100% of our brains. Because right now, humans only use 10%. And so all these, which is not true at all, but like that's what I was told of, like, oh, you have all these questions, you can't understand it. That's okay, because you can only use 10% of your brain right now anyway. So in the kingdom, you'll be able to understand. I'm like, no.
I like that they're like, humans are stupid. Don't worry about it. God has it covered. It's basically what they're saying through all of these thought terminating cliches. It's like, don't worry about it. You're just a stupid human.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
In nicer terms.
Yeah, you're just stupid human.
You can't know God.
Yeah, but like, don't worry. In the future, you'll have your humanity taken right out of you.
And then you'll know. About that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, great. Oh, geez. Compelling.
But yeah, I feel like not only, like I said earlier, is the Christadelphian beliefs so time intensive with thousands of years involved with this afterlife scenario, but it's so anticlimactic, to be quite honest. I feel like for a book that's supposedly written to motivate people to want to be in this kingdom and to be with God forever, I think the Bible is actually doing a terrible job. It's bad propaganda. It would essentially be authoritarian propaganda, if we're going to be honest, if that's what he wants, is to take away our free will and to coerce people to worship him in Jerusalem. That sounds awful. And the fact that there was nothing even compelling at the end to be like, oh, like you should really want to be in the kingdom because XYZ and like have all of that stuff in there. Instead, we got fucking Revelation as the end of the Bible. Like, are you kidding me? You really thought I was going to want to like sell my soul with this? The lake of fire and blood, and when, like, if you're going to want to sell me on the kingdom, like, emphasize that I can talk to my dead animals and resurrect them. Like, that's the thing to hit on.
Exactly.
Again, just very ineffective when you really look at what's there. And again, I have a hard time believing God would write this, because again, he has the power to just make angels. And like, if he already has angels, we're going to be like, angels, is he just not appreciating the angels he has? Like, you already have these beings. Do they not worship you enough? Like, what's the fucking problem? How big of an ego do you have that you need millions more to be trained to worship you and give you dead animals? Like, I just really, an all-knowing, all-being, eternal, merciful, wonderful God, this is what he wants? This is the point of humanity?
It's really impossible to swallow.
This is the end goal for us? It's just a terrible message. This is a bad book. Like, this is bad marketing. Like, a publicist would not be able to sell this shit. This is not good. Like, I would rather believe in heaven and hell.
Honestly. Like, at least it's definitive. At least it's something to like latch onto. You know, like
it's very simple.
It's very simple. Like,
be a good person, you're all set. Be a shitty person, all right, you'll get karma. We'll catch up to you. So I had a problem with that. I found a quote about beyond the millennium. So let's see what the Christadelphians have to say. Because again, I try to like ground this in what Christadelphians are actually saying. Quote, what will happen beyond the millennium? We are given a fair amount of detail of the post-millennial period in Revelation 21. Beyond the millennium, there will be no more nations. God will no longer be invisible. And there is no more death or sorrow. ... We don't know what God has in store for us at the end of the millennium. Probably we would be incapable of comprehending in our current mortal state, unquote.
Don't ever tell me that again.
He says we have a fair amount of detail and list 3 stupid things. No more nations. That has no relevance to me. Let's be honest. God is not invisible. Don't give a shit if he's invisible or not. I've never seen him, so I don't really miss it. 3, no more death or sorrow. We've already hit that way earlier in other parts of the Bible.
Yeah.
Where's this detail? There's no detail. And then he says, we don't know. And then he gives the same reason as you keep referencing that Christadelphians give. We're just stupid mortals who have no idea. We couldn't comprehend the marvels. That's why we have to blindly agree to this, devote our whole lives to it, devote our afterlives to it for 1,000 years, just so we get a chance to do something that we have no idea what it is.
Exactly. And that makes no sense even than what we were taught. Like, I was taught thinking that the more you study, the more you search out for truth, you seek, you shall find. You knock, and there will be supposedly answers given to you.
Opened unto
exactly.
You.
And
we
so,
sang that so many times.
I know, but except for this topic, it's like you don't ask questions about this. You seek answers for this. Well, you're not going to find, so you better shut up about it.
God has hidden it under a bushel, I would say. God hid that answer.
That's not congruent. Like that, those two things are like opposite teachings. Like, you would think that if that actually was true, and if you sought for truth, these truth seekers, Christadelphians,
that
ultimate,
it would be universal.
Yes, you'd think that if you actually were to seek for truth, then of course God's going to give you these answers. But instead, it's like you would think, right? You would think, but instead, it's like, well, this doesn't actually matter now. You can't even understand it anyway. So stop asking.
You silly human.
You stupid human. You arrogant human. Stop asking these questions. Like that.
You think you can understand God?
Exactly.
God's ways are better than
And it's like,
ours.
but you told me as a kid that if I sought answers, I would find.
Well,
and you taught me that I had this personal relationship with God where I could ask him my petition. You know what I mean? Like, you're taught that you have this personal access to God and this personal relationship with him.
Praying.
You're praying.
God
and,
will try to answer
and God's like your father. And if I have anxieties about this, you would think that when I would pray about it as a teen and as an adult, about like, I'm really anxious about this. This doesn't make sense to me. Please give me the answers, or like, please show me where I'm missing something, or like, show me where my own flesh is getting in the way and I can allow blah, blah, blah. I prayed for that. Like, I genuinely prayed and prayed for like these, it wasn't even doubts I was having. It was just like anxieties and fears about, I don't want this.
Understandable, very justifiable anxiety. Like, very relatable, personally even.
Absolutely. And so, but do you think I ever got any like answers?
He didn't write
no,
to you?
Yeah,
he didn't send you a dream like he did to Joseph?
Exactly,
Just
no.
like, here's a vision of the kingdom in your slumber, my darling Chloe.
My answer to my prayer with that was COVID, where I got to deconstruct. So literally, I got to sit during COVID and think for myself for like the first time ever. Like that's true, genuinely what happened. So I was like,
that's
okay.
kind of hilarious that was like, well, this is my sign, I guess, time to leave.
Genuinely, I remember praying like my last kind of big prayer of like, before I make this decision, I'm going to pray to God and be like, please, if I'm missing something, show me. But I can't do this anymore. I have to leave. And I'm not kidding. The next day, I like read about like Neville Goddard or some other like spiritual teacher from the same time period as John Thomas, and I was like, interesting answer, God. Interesting answer to my prayer. But I didn't get any visions of the kingdom. I never got any answer from God. Never got any verse like enlightenment to me that I didn't know.
And I have heard that from a number of people who were pious and who saw it, and they really did try. And it's like, God, it's in your court. If you can give me a sign, I'm here. If you don't give me a sign, it is time for me to acknowledge that I need to figure things out for myself. And every time I hear that, I hear people leaving, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah. So we have reached the end of my crazy, insane list of questions and quotations about the kingdom. I had a feeling we were going to run over time. We absolutely crazy did, which is not the first time we've had a long podcast episode. So to wind down, is there any other reasons that we didn't already discuss that you want to share for why you wouldn't want to be in the kingdom that we didn't discuss? Anything like that first?
Nothing I think that we didn't touch on. It's more so just my final statement. I'm against the worldwide erasure of humanity as a whole. Like that is a concept I am against.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, for me, I've stated so many reasons, I think, peppered throughout this episode
Yeah.
that, I would never abandon my pets and my family just so I can individually avoid death. There's nothing that really appeals to me about the post-apocalyptic life that is described through the Millennium. And I don't think there's any appeal to the life of being an immortal.
Yeah.
And especially with the Christadelphian belief system, I really don't think the alternative is that bad.
Yeah.
Most humans, the belief we were taught was that you live your human life and at the end you rest in peace, or in my case, haunt you.
Yeah.
But then that's it. And I'm okay with that because it forces me to live my life in a more meaningful way. It encourages me to appreciate my life.
Yeah.
I mean, even creating this podcast, I had a number of times in my life where I didn't think I was going to be alive much longer. For different reasons, it's come up a number of times. And so, part of me was like, why not make a podcast now? What if I die tomorrow?
Yeah.
It's part of it is like, I would rather say these things now than never get the opportunity and regret it. So I think living that way with that emphasis on my humanity and the fact that I know I will die someday and that's all I get is this life now, I think it invigorates me to continue to try to live and take the chances while you have them and show people you love that you love them while you have this life. So for me, honestly, it makes my life better to not believe it. It makes the life of everyone around me, I think, better to not believe that. And I see no world in which I would want to give all of that up and basically go back on I think of it as like a conveyor belt where they tell you what to do and you just go on that path until you die and you fall off the conveyor belt into your grave and you hope you get a second chance. I don't believe that. I mean, there may be there's something else. Maybe there's reincarnation or something. I don't know. But I would rather know that I lived one life well than waste one life letting someone else tell me what to believe, letting someone else tell me what to do, letting someone else tell me who I can marry and what I have to do with my life, and then I have to be a mother and all this other shit, which maybe isn't right for me, and then just passively go through my life, letting someone else control the direction and what I'm doing and my choices. And I can't agree to, and especially not for this payoff of this promise of this is the end goal. Maybe after you die. And even then, there's so many levels of terrible that I think we've really hit on that I wouldn't recommend anyone do this. If someone asked me my opinion. And, there are people who may be like, you know what, you got this wrong, Zinni, it's great, whatever. If you want to believe it, that's your choice. Go for it. Not going to tell anyone what to believe. But throughout history, for the last several hundred years, I have not heard anyone talk about all the things we talked about today. I think this is really groundbreaking. I think we had a really amazing conversation, to be honest. I think you added a lot to this, Chloe.
I'm glad.
And I had a feeling you would, based on where you grew up and the way you think even, and the reasons you left. You were the first person I thought of when it came to talking about this stuff.
I'm glad I could contribute something.
So I'm just glad that for so many people, whether they're starting to deconstruct or they're thinking about leaving, or no matter where they are, even if they just want to hear a different perspective because they're so used to hearing the same things like we did over and over again and not really thinking these things through, we're just encouraging you to think, ask questions, laugh too, have a good time, but, just take the chance to think about things. This is just offering another perspective on something where they never let you hear the other side of it. They never let you ask questions. Your questions are welcome here, Chloe. So
thank you.
It's been really fun. And I know you've been really doing a lot of work with deconstruction lately a little bit and with your writing. And I was wondering if you wanted to share anything about where people can find you and continue to keep up with your questions and with you speaking out about your deep thoughts on all of this sort of spirituality stuff.
So I started a Substack about deconstruction officially. It's called Heretic Ecclesia. I'm kind of in the mindset that I'm starting my own little ecclesia of heretics, and we can all.
You did trigger me a little bit because I saw "Welcome to my ecclesia."
Yeah,
I was like, oh my god!
I know, that's why I changed the name, because I'm like, this sounds too.
It was a little
Christadelphia.
too close.
It was a little too close to home. So now I'm like, no, the heretics are the ones who are here. So yeah, I started a Substack just so I can have somewhere to basically rant and share all of these things that I thought about for years without ever getting to speak about them. So much stuff that I think we as ex-Christadelphians have to repress and keep buried so deep to the point where like half of our personality is hidden. You know, I wanted to create a space for any kind of topic or conversation about deconstruction, ex-Christadelphian life, issues we had with doctrine, anything like that. And I guess one thing I would add is like what you were saying at the end there about this is like a place to think. I also would say this is a place to start listening to your body and to yourself, because if you're living in a belief system that causes you severe anxiety and panic attacks every day, maybe that's a sign that something isn't right, you know? Like,
actually listen to those.
Yes, actually listen to that. And I think I ignored that for so long, and so this is like, my place where we can,
to be honest.
I think it's very normal just to ignore that. And it's like very much in your head, right? Christadelphia. It's a lot going on in your head.
It is.
Not a lot going on in your
denial
heart.
Of the self.
Yeah, denial of self.
And not in your body.
Nothing going on. Nothing going on in your body, or nothing tapped into like your emotions or your heart. It's very like head, mental knowledge focused.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, so my Substack is Heretic Ecclesia if anybody would like to follow, and I'm going to be making a separate Instagram account, and we'll probably start doing some like recorded podcast episodes of like longer topics too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Woohoo! Welcome to the podcast space.
Thank
girl.
you. I was writing out my like whole deconstruction story. I'm like, this is going to be 1,200 pages long when I could just do
welcome to my scripts that I write for the history episodes.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm like, this, I could just say this, you know, in a podcast. So eventually I will be starting that too. But yeah.
Yeah, I do think people have really enjoyed the maybe not the long form, but the long form audio, because it does make it a little easier than reading
I personally love it,
and they can really just put it on so easily. And again, it also helps that they can get like the tone and stuff too, of like how I'm talking about things, which I think is kind of nice, and it feels personal, and it's easier to like remember and engage with. It's just a fun format. I've really loved it, so I recommend it, and I will drop any links for your stuff in the show notes for this episode so anyone can easily find them. Just scroll down whatever player you're listening to this on, and I'll have them on the podcast social media as well. So,
perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on and spending 3.5 hours.
You're so welcome. I enjoyed every minute of it.
I did too.
I'm also obsessed with that. I need to read Hughes. I need to read his whole thing, because that is wild stuff that I have never even heard before.
Yeah, you're gonna lose your mind, probably like I did reading that. All right, thank you, Chloe, again for coming on the podcast today, and thank you for all of our listeners for tuning in again. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. That's all for today's episode. I hope that you'll join us here again, and take care. Bye, everyone. That's all for today's episode. As always, I appreciate you all for listening. And if you want to show your appreciation, feel free to leave a review, like our posts on the podcast Facebook or Instagram, or share this episode with a friend. I also love hearing from you, so you can always send me a message or send an email to lifeafterleavingpodcast@gmail.com. Bye, everyone.